if it isn't, they will work on evenings and weekends to try to offset any time that they would need to shut things down, and they would do it in January.
At this point, where does that money come from?
At this point, that money would come from so one of the tech lines, and that would be
Contracted service line.
the contracted service line. So what we've done with SimQuest this year is we've done these 3-month safety net contracts, and we had budgeted that line at 20,000, and we were able to cut down part of the cost of that monthly charge because they weren't charging for. They're not covering the switches because at this point Fairpoint is covering the switches, so that was a little bit less. So there will be some money in that line for this project.
And SimQuest has been, as you mentioned, this has been a company that has been with us for a while. They know the system.
So they know the system. So their tech comes in 4 hours a month, but also they've been consulting with Julian over the phone a lot. They worked through the Meals Plus issue that we had earlier in the year, and they've come other times. Eric is our salesperson, but he comes and has monthly meetings with Julian and with me and reports out on how the system's functioning and what things we need to be watching for, and the available space on the different servers and other things. So they have a good knowledge of our system, and Julian and John spent a great deal of time together, more than the 4 hours of the month, sitting down and going through the system and preparing for what does need to be transitioned, what doesn't need to be transitioned, how old are all of these protocols and the group, whatever they are called.
Policies.
There you go. So all of the different things that have to be transitioned, which ones are still relevant and which ones are older and should be transitioned to something newer. So John and Julian sat down with the group policies and did quite a bit of work before all this is happening to really just clean up and make things smoother.
Well, this was the right way to improve our
This is the
technology.
way to do it.
And so there's been a number of years where it was kind of patched together and
At
maybe
best.
not always the right way. So I'm glad to see that we're continuing to go forward, doing it how it needs to be done.
Yeah, I think we've been limping along for a while, keeping our fingers crossed.
That's
A little
been a
bit too
strategy.
much.
It certainly has been our strategy, and I do want to be clear that we do not have a technology director. And Julian is IT support, and he does a great job at that, and he works really hard to meet whatever needs we have that a technology director would be meeting. And some of those things are in his comfort zone, and some of them are not. And most of them, to be completely honest, are not in my comfort zone. So when he and I are sitting down to work through, what are we doing? We've spent a lot of time with Eric, he and I together, looking at what we're doing, and he has to spend a significant amount of time explaining to me what he's talking about. And I'm fairly tech savvy, but I know that what we need to do is to start cleanly with this server and make sure that everything that's coming into it is what needs to be there, and that all of this garbage from the last 20 years of change in the system is weeded out.
I mean, I don't mind saying too that even if we had a technology director, I mean, this is a major project.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it makes sense to have 2 pairs of eyes doing this transition.
Sure.
So,
Even if we had a technology director, I don't see them as being highly qualified when it comes to network architecture either. I mean, it is
Right, this is
specialty.
pretty specialized.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it would depend on the person, for sure.
For, 150 grand,
Right.
Yeah.
we've been talking about a lot of upgrades too. We were talking about upgrading to Office 360 before the beginning of the school year. So with this transition, we'll finally be able to get to that status.
Yeah. And part of what we didn't want to do was muddy the waters with a transition before having the phone system, which that project was a disaster. But before having that completely done and before moving into this server project, we didn't want to muddy the waters with a changeover to Office 365 and then have to pull out the pieces. So they're really wanting to do those projects in tandem so that they're putting everything in.
Well, you know, disasters happen when you have antiquated, old
That's
technology
exactly right.
and you bring in today's technology.
Right.
I mean, you're just asking for it. And I understand there are certain reasons why, the school has old technology, but,
Mhm.
And the patchwork hasn't helped. You know, you get a new thing that fits in, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, it's compatible. You know, it's like buying parts for a car. You know, if you don't have the right parts, it's easy to have a car where all the parts work together. Sure, they're not together.
so if they can't, like you mentioned, if they can't do this during Christmas break and it ends up being in the month of January, they would be able to come in off hours?
They'll come off hours.
I mean, I
They'll
don't know.
be here, they'll do the things that won't disrupt the system.
Right. I
during
wouldn't want
lunch.
to disrupt, I don't know when testing takes place, things like that.
Yeah.
That usually seems to be, the most important.
Yeah, and they'll have all that information, and that's why they were hoping to plan around a break, but they're willing to do evenings and force a Saturday if they're anticipating a large disruption to function.
There should be very few parts of it that would.
Right, and it would be one part at a time.
But
Yeah.
there would be very few things that could cause disruption.
Mhm.
I mean, those systems are designed to be brought on parallel, and the enterprises would never be able to,
Yep,
take it down.
right,
We're penciled in for Christmas vacation.
we are.
Do you need anything from the board, or?
Just
Approval.
the go-ahead for this, I mean,
You don't need a
So you
motion.
don't need a motion?
yeah, I think we're talking about.
All right, I'll make a motion that we replace the antiquated server with the new upgraded system of Simquest Assistance.
Got that.
Try to italicize that adjective.
Maybe put the price in
I
there,
don't have
which
an updated price tag.
Yeah, that's not right.
was 9,258. And I'll second.
Is anybody, any discussion on the purchase of the services of SimQuest to install our new server? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And just while we're talking about tech update, they, First Choice was in working on the paging system. Yay! It's not perfect yet.
No, but it worked today.
It works.
It works.
There's quite an echo
Yeah.
at this point. So Julian had a family emergency, so he is out. He will be out tomorrow, but he will be back in the next week. I can't say for sure he won't be in this weekend actually because it's bothering him to tweak the amplifier. But they did install new cabling and a new amplifier for that old speaker system. And because, again, the antiquated system and the new technology and the VoIP system
So like a
are
mouse on a wheel or
have a
something.
little bit of trouble. Well, if you would have seen the stuff you pulled out of that closet, you probably would have been wearing a respirator in my office this week. But I spent a lot of time not in my office. So it was okay. So they're still working on it, but the PA system is working. There's a really strange echo.
As long as it's working.
Yep.
Well, yes, it's working. It gets everyone's attention, to be
Yeah.
sure.
It's a safety.
Yeah, well, no question about that. I mean,
Val, can we get an update on the server switchover, like at the first board meeting in January?
Sure.
All right, moving on.
it's time.
It's
Tough budget.
time.
I was actually hoping to just give a update real quick, briefly on recent events from last night regarding facilities under new business. Second week.
Do you want to do the financial stuff before we get to the
Sure.
budget?
Yes.
That makes good sense.
You want to throw your new business in there?
Sure, while you're reviewing.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
Yep.
So in light of recent events last night, I know Trevor, you were here, we had an incident with smoke alarm going off
No, we should.
in the sixth grade hallway.
But there's no problem.
There wasn't,
No popcorn.
the fire department said we came into.
And so, first I would like to thank our service people for such a great response to the fire alarm, including Trevor from the sheriff's department, who's like second on scene.
Was this before or after that?
This
It was
is
before.
the-
It was at like
Right after the kids
3:45.
go out, yeah.
See, you didn't even know anything had happened.
I didn't. It was very
Totally
loud.
cleaned up the
I didn't say
hazmat
anything.
scene.
Shouldn't have said
Everything
that.
worked out. It was, I think, eye-opening experience for some. Concerns are that the facility being used was not by any member of the school per se. It was a third party that we allowed to use this building. Unfortunately, we don't have any written agreement or insurance for them. So I'd like to bring that to the board as a concern. I'm not sure if there was a damage, how that would be handled insurance-wise. Also, the facility is being used as a kitchen to serve students out of, and they have applied for a program through the school, not through the school, for the school. So in past, Access has used that facility to serve, sandwiches out of. I was unaware that they were using the stove to cook anything. But until about 1:30, Beth had come up to speak to me about the state coming in to do an inspection on both the area for the facility and also the serving area, because she had applied as the school for the program. And they had said nothing can be cooked on that stove because we don't have an Ansel system over there, so there can be no, and I specifically said hamburgers. Anything on the stovetop that's grease related, we don't have a system for that, and the fire department could actually shut us down. And unfortunately, 2 hours later, that's what they were cooking.
Exactly what happened.
That started that issue. So I just want to bring that to the
So
board's
this was
attention.
this was a third party to the school.
This was Access.
Oh, that's what that is, okay.
Access doesn't have an insurance policy.
Not that we have for this year.
We didn't.
We don't have a written agreement, memorandum of contract, nothing on it. I think I'm more concerned with the fact that they applied for a state program as the school and appointed an Access member as the food service director. Because that truly jeopardizes, and I've mentioned this before, it truly jeopardizes our lunch program that we have here.
Jim, I think we asked for
We do.
a copy of the memorandum of understanding, the current one or the one that we are working on with Access.
We have.
This really amplifies.
We've had it.
That it needs, we need to see it, we need to have it approved, we make sure we have all
back
our.
and forth, we get a
Yeah.
copy of it too.
Times.
Offers and things, we've increased it, adjusted it and such. We need to finalize it.
Yeah, let's finalize it. Let's
And they,
make-
go ahead.
Can we make sure that that's on old business for our next meeting?
Including some detail about their insurance information. Because what would happen is we would become responsible for that.
Right.
And we would have nobody to subrogate against, and it would be our dime. Or it would be denied based on the fact that it was not our risk exactly, and we would be left holding the bag for whatever damage was done. Depends on how strict the policy is.
How would it happen?
This felt pretty good.
Right up until they burned.
Okay, moving on.
So budget, or do you want to do the manifest while you're looking?
I'm still looking. Pass it out.
Go this way. And I apologize for being late, we were updating some numbers, but then as technology, I think we're gonna end up needing to replace our copier in the SAU, It's starting to be very, so it was never, we had always thought that it was, great for SAU use.
Are there two?
Um,
Is this an
No,
extra?
this is an extra.
Okay.
As we start to use it more often, because we had added the teachers on the 7th and 8th grade level to use that, it has
Same thing.
huge increased use, and it's starting to act up. I think some of the sheets have been like stapled 2 times, some might not have any staples.
Sometimes it's still
Yeah. It doesn't like these large pieces of paper anymore. So for those of you in the audience that have never seen this huge form, we start with, and you don't have the line numbers on the side, I know there might be some numbers that skip, it's really just for us to reference as we talk about it, and then in the end, we will renumber these on the right-hand side, left-hand side. The description, 2 years ago, the budget and the actual, last year's budget and actual, this year's budget and what we've used year-to-date through today, and then next year's proposed. Does that make sense? Do you want to talk about these lines, or do you want me
I
to?
think we can go back and forth. You're fine. We're on the first page, obviously. Alt Ed. Alt Ed is the program that we have in the back of the school. We have high hopes for that. you notice there it goes across, and you're going to see a comment after each amount. Current amount, the number of days, number of hours per day, and it will include the maximum merit increase. Because remember, the folks who are not in the CBA are subject to merit raise, and we have to put in the highest possible in case they make it. So that's why you'll see that, and that's why it was calculated out.
Yep, and this position is not benefited. I did put a note on the second line that says increased summer, so this particular person does work during the summer, which we had not budgeted for previously. They work 4 hours a day for 4 days a week for the 5 weeks, which is the summer program. So we did include that in this new proposed amount. That's the difference between this year's budget and next year's proposed. And we did remove travel. So we had budgeted this year $50. We feel that that travel is really going to be somebody else who's traveling to Keene High School. This year we did not budget for any supplies because we had purchased supplies from last year, but we do anticipate with the increased tuition, as you saw earlier in the budget process, that we will need some more additional books for Penn Foster. So we budgeted $250 for supplies.
Any questions about the program itself, or the student, what its goal is? I did, and I think I may have mentioned we have an adult, and I'm really excited about that. Well-educated societies is what we're looking for, is what we do.
Now, last year, we didn't focus too much on it, but this year, we've been quite a response.
You betcha. And what we do is we're advertising, we've had flyers, they've gone out to Coolidge, they've gone out to Town Hall and such. And we're really advertising the fact that we're pushing that here's a chance, here's an opportunity, if it's not working out. The other part of it is now I'm not doing both positions, I have more time to spend up at the high school, and we can anticipate, or we can figure out where the kids are. And I just want to let the board know, we just received the report cards, for lack of a better term, all the students, all the Winchester students at the Keene High. So Taylor Radcliffe and I are actually going through them to see the students. You may have a junior that has 4 credits, I hope now what's going on. So, and sometimes that program is appropriate, but I do want to be very clear about it. Every once in a while, we get a request from someone whose mom who has a 14-year-old child and says, well, I want my child to go there. This program is absolutely not designed for that. That is not a wise idea to have a 15-year-old graduate from this program.
I think the board understands that, that's an administration call.
Okay.
You look at it on a case-by-case basis. I think the best advertising for this program are actually people who have gone through the program,
Yep.
telling other people. Hope it continues to improve.
Yeah, we're going to keep pushing that. People like it.
Do you, for my own application, do you always receive the report cards to be able to have an opportunity to go through?
No. That's something that's been relatively new.
Good.
In fact, I could refer to our subcommittee. We've been talking, these are things that we
Yep.
need. So it's been in almost to resistance, but we didn't get them at first. Like, well, why didn't we get them? So we've been pretty persistent. So this is really what we need. What's the deal here?
Well, I'm glad, because one thing that kind of bothered me when we heard the presentation from Keene was that we could have a senior who has, like you said,
Yes,
4 or
right.
5 credits, and they're never going to graduate like that, and we don't know it until the
That's
end
right.
comes.
Shame
and
on us for not catching that.
So I'm glad that you're now getting that information in enough time to make some proactive
Even if we had a
actions.
student, a freshman, for example, only had, 4 or 5 credits, whatever the case may be, this did happen, we can look into it and say, what's the situation here?
Right.
And there's an explanation. Okay, fine, all right, we get that.
Good.
With that, we can do it.
What we've had in the past is that guidance counselor would request the names of the students and number of credits they had, but we didn't have a breakdown of what classes they've got
Right.
credits for. Is there a pattern in what they're not getting credit for? Are they starting English every
Student
year?
struggle? Yeah,
Math
exactly.
every year? So we didn't have any information to be able to provide any kind of services, whether are they making it or they're not.
If you identify a trend, you can't
That's right.
develop a plan for making it better.
The reports we just got include the GPA too, and I was asked Taylor, she would just go, do you see anything 2 or below highlighted? That's good.
Next is the Honor Society, and also school sponsored, which we know as Student Council. So we have 2 teachers provide Honor Society program to our Honor Society students. And in past years, we've always budgeted for one person to run the student council program. And so those are $250 stipends for each. With Social Security as the second line, which you'll see as line 92, and then teacher retirement, which is line 93.
Does the board know about the honestly college group thing?
I'll let you speak to the next
Kimoko?
one.
Line 99 is guidance, guidance salaries. You see it going through. And I want to highlight here too, this does include, our guidance counselor is not making $154,000. That we have two, it's in the same, social worker and our guidance counselor under this line, so just to clarify that. And then you see the breakdown. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to digress. This too includes, maybe I don't need to say it, but it does include the maximum, just so we do have it, in case both were to receive it. Oh, I'm sorry. Right, we spoke, you heard our request earlier a few weeks ago about the possibility of having you might call it a
Social worker?
It wasn't social worker.
Crisis counselor.
Adjustment, we've heard adjustment counselor, crisis counselor, same, that includes this position as well. Thank you.
So this line is actually three.
It's actually
a
three.
guidance counselor and
Yeah,
a
that would-
role
would
for
have to be
a
three.
crisis intervention position.
As we
And-
looked into other programs,
Yeah.
especially in neighboring Massachusetts, but also in Vermont, what they're calling them is school adjustment counselors, because the focus is to help students and families adjust to the requirements of school, but also to take what they're learning at school and the strategies and apply them back to the household and help students in the community and with other agencies. So the name that is being used in other programs is school adjustment counselor, so that's what Mike and I have to say.
So when you talk to these people, that's how you got that salary, $3,000 a year?
So the way that we got the salary for that was to take the salaries of others in the guidance department and average it to do an average.
Okay. And do you see that being a full-time position?
We do.
We're also looking at grant opportunities for this position. Maria and I were looking at it again today. She has access to the Department of Ed website that you wouldn't see outside. She can actually sign in and see all these grant opportunities, and you have to read through all of them. But I had attended a best practice workshop that talked about, these are the positions that they're now starting to fund. There actually is a new grant out there that's what we're searching for to see if it would cover this position, or at least partial position.
I remember one of our first conversations, this came out as part of the wish list, right? This is one of the positions that was on the wish list, and we talked about the grant. And clearly, I like the idea of a grant, but I never want us to be dependent upon
Right.
funding a
Absolutely.
position only with grant, because then what happens if we don't get the grant?
There is something else. There was remember Dennis Calcutt was here
Yep.
gosh, months ago. I spoke with Dennis actually earlier today. And that's moving along quite well. In fact, there's interviews for people who coordinate the training of wraparound services. We might be able to tap into that as well.
He was here to discuss the community
Mhm.
mental health
That's right.
initiative grant that they received for our community. And
That's
yeah.
right. That's right.
But the grant that they received was very specific about extreme emotional disturbance. And so while there are some students who qualify for that, there are plenty of others who would benefit from the person in this position who would not qualify for that. So there may be some opportunity to team with that initiative, but it would it wouldn't be possible.
Those, they're at the teacher rate. They fall for health benefits on the New Hampshire NHIT plan, which is the non-CBU plan. And we do not have even the GMR for those rates yet. We usually receive those around the 15th of the month in December. So that's why you see a blank. So I can't even say it's 8.6% over last year because we don't have that figure for this whole group.
We won't have that until a couple more weeks.
Exactly.
Getting back to the grant for like a crisis counselor, how does that application go? I mean, how soon would we know?
We usually know rather quickly. I think we actually ran across some grants that were closing next week for teachers, and we were like, what, this is covered?
That's right. It's about keeping an eye open for these grants.
So usually there's a January to March kind of application for the various different grants that are out there, usually the January to March application deadline is typically, by the end of the fiscal year.
Now, and I want to stress too, getting back to, this budget should be what this school district needs, not what it wants. I mentioned that at one of our previous meetings too. We've had a pretty, I'm not going to call it a plea, but Mike was pretty passionate about
Sure
saying
was.
what he needs. We
Needs.
brought in a principal with a lot of experience dealing with kids in the middle school, and I have a lot of confidence that he knows what he's talking about,
Sure.
and I think he's got a good sense of how we can really put our best foot forward and make this school better.
Another thing to note in this line is that further on, where the discipline support staff salary was, that line has been zeroed out. It's not one that we're using this year, that was the ISS position. And it's not one we intend to use next year, because part of that issue is intended to be resolved using this crisis counselor. So there is that bit of offsetting from the budget.
A proactive approach as opposed
That's
to
exactly right.
reactive.
So dental insurance has not changed, has not increased. Have budgeted for a family plan for that additional position. Teacher retirement I spoke about. So teacher retirement has increased from 15.67% to 17.36% for next year. The mandate, we have to budget for that. So it definitely jumps significantly there. I spoke to guidance today regarding supplies, and their proposal is for supplies to actually decrease from $300 to $250. They're using more and more printed and book material. They actually have almost a library that they'd like to continue to add on. One of the workers there had said, I'd really like to purchase a whole series of books. It's 50 books, but I've been buying them myself, not using these funds, and she's been buying them in increments of 3 or 4. So the funds this year will be utilized, but that does explain why the $500 from last year was not. But going forward, they'd like to at least have $200 each to spend just on books. And it's books for the students to read as well.
Right.
So these are as they break out and they're going to have downtime, they're going to be reading books. So.
It's books they're using also in guidance lessons, so there are a lot of
How-to.
social topics and things coming up where they're putting together lessons to present to classes, and the best way to talk about really some complex social issues with young kids is with literature. So they're really being strategic about the books they're buying to use in lessons with kids.
And the conference and travel and professional development all falls into school admin, but that, just to let you know, is another piece that they said that they would really like to see additional funds put towards professional development, because there's a lot of training courses out there. They attended one last year that, although the school paid for the class, the school wasn't able to pay for the travel. They paid for the overnight stay. But they'd like to see more funds, because right now they're kind of limited to like $500 a person based on what's in the budget. So they too would like to have more training in professional
Training's
development.
ongoing, lifelong, every subject.
And you said that we are going to see some kind of line item spent out of what's there for books and
Yeah, I think after today's conversation, it'll be spent like,
Good.
like they've already purchased books this year with their own funds.
So they need to see reimbursement.
Exactly.
We like this case. Okay.
Psychologist?
So let's move on to psychologist salary. You see the amount there, $35,681.82, and 50% of that salary and the benefits are paid from the IDEA grant. Again, the health insurance is pretty much a moving target right now. We're not sure, obviously, the breakdown for others, such as the dental, social security, teacher retirement.
And that salary line includes the maximum merit increase as well. It's the cutoff, because they don't have so much room.
Right.
This is a grant that is comes every time.
So 50% salary, all benefits, you'll see here, and then another 50% at the grant. travel for psych? You said that he's gonna be traveling.
Yeah, we don't see it here yet, but there's a very good, well, it is an excellent possibility for traveling around too.
When possible, we order a lot of the testing materials out of the IDEA grant as well. It all depends on what we have funding. That's the differential. When we receive the grant funds, where we can put them, we always usually put the salaries first and then allocate the rest. We were able to purchase some of the supplies even last year out of IDEA. As you can see, we overspent that line. That line could be $1,000 for next year, but we're budgeting for $750 in hopes that more funds will come out of the IDEA.
There are certain specialized testing books that psychologists use, and new things come out all the time. All right, any question on that? Speech and hearing. If you speak to any superintendent in the area, they say, boy, how do you have any speech people? It is a tough thing to do. We've done well, all things considered. We struggled for a while there. We have some great people on board. We're very fortunate to have them. So you see line 122, you see the total amount, 84, that's 2 positions. You see the 64 plus the 19. Half is here and half is salary and benefits to the IDA grant.
So we have one full-time person and one part-time person. Half of the part-time person is funded through this area, including half of the part-time person's benefits. A little confusing. Didn't know how to read that, but.
This might be the right time to say we've entered an agreement with this part-time person to stay with us for a number of years. It's kind of like a proactive thing to do, knowing that we're going to need speech services for years to come. So we made a great offer to this person. Which we agreed to. The person agreed to.
It's also important to know, when I had a conversation with one of them today, that they're supporting 84 students in that program now.
I was gonna ask you that.
And they're at their limit. And they want us to at least know that 2 years ago, they had 2.5 people in that program. I know we've run into, and that was the whole grand idea, and I agree, sending somebody to training so that we had somebody instead of using the booth week service, but they're at their limit. And this is, I think, the biggest area.
It sure is. In fact, I was told there was a meeting with a couple of superintendents a couple days ago. We talked about sharing resources. And one of the first things that came up was speech. We all need speech. The problem is nobody has any extra speech to share with us. And our folks are out straight when they get into the program. So it is, if you want your kids to go into a business, you can write your own ticket. Speech, vision, OT.
Are most of the kids in the younger grades that take?
Yeah, usually.
That's where the bulk of their load is, but it's important to note that when we're talking about speech, it's not just articulation issues, it's also language disorders. And nationwide, we're seeing an increase in language disorders, and there's a lot of kind of sputtering around that to look at what are the causes of that. And what is coming up a lot is education of parents and education of students who will then become parents about the need to actually teach your children how to converse. There's coming into the digital age and a lot of devices and a lot of toys that do all the talking. There's not a need to pretend to play with your kids and to have those kinds of conversations back and forth with them. And so we're seeing a lot of that typical conversational language not develop in kids until they're in school. And so speech pathologists are scrambling to meet those needs as they're coming in. And so really important to get them at that 3- and 4-year-old level to start them in speech. And so lots of our kids in preschool are participating in speech group or are receiving speech services. And many of our kindergartners are on that speech caseload.
Yeah, I was
for those
wondering,
reasons.
because we've put a focus in on our preschool, running
Absolutely.
class,
You know, is this one of the reasons why the number's higher?
It is one of the reasons, and the speech department did, you know, essentially warn us when we were talking about adding the preschool, that we needed to be aware that that meant we were likely adding up to 20 kids to their caseload, because preschoolers are coming in needing speech services.
But if you encounter these problems that students have when they're younger.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know, you're taking
Absolutely.
care of yourself down the road.
Yes, and you're able to do a lot of that with the preschoolers in a group setting. So,
Yep.
for example, our speech pathologist will go into our special ed preschool 1 or 2 days a week and run the morning meeting, and they're really focusing on the language development, and they're very strategic about how they do that. And so they're able to meet a lot of kids' needs all at once and really provide that to everyone, even the kids who wouldn't qualify for speech services, but are really needing that little bit of a boost.
And this is 2 positions. Do you see a future need for more?
Oh, yes, we could use that.
Had to take a backseat to some other needs. this
Well, the
year.
reality is we could have put it in the budget and not found a person to fill it.
That's,
for a
well,
while.
that's the whole thing.
They're-
We're trying to
they're
find
just
someone
not
who's
available.
key,
Yeah.
and we end up with a Boothby service, either a person or the apprentice learning, which is a computer.
Yeah.
That's how desperate. We used apprentice learning 3 or 4, maybe more years ago. Computerized system, all approved, nonetheless, this wasn't being face to face. It's a tough field.
So as Jim has mentioned, there's a lot of discussion with districts about, you know, not only how do we fund another speech path and how can we share that, but how can we find another speech path? And so having districts having discussions about going in together on that, it's easier for 3 districts to find 1 speech path than for 3 districts to find 3 speech paths, especially in this area of the state.
And then maybe you have an opportunity to just add that extra third of a person, if that's even a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, as you share their services.
That's it, yeah. Which makes our agreements, long-term agreements, even more strategic.
Yeah.
Travel stayed the same. Supplies, speech, so they do use their supplies. They have requested for next year a comprehensive assessment of spoken language. It's the 2nd edition, it's the most important test, it's $559. In addition to that, they've requested the Con Lewis. I don't know if that was something you could do that. Phonological analysis, it's the 3rd edition of $179, and then the 3rd request is a clinical evaluation of language fundamentals screening test, 5th edition, which is $290. What's sad is that the next one says, but if we can't get the 5th edition screening test for the $290, then we need to have the 4th edition record forms for $60. So I know we're talking $230 there. So I did put into the budget all of that as
Yep.
$1,000.
Yep.
I mean, if they're supporting 84 students, they should have the material.
And I think Kevin into that and take care of it now.
And they do already have orders in. We haven't paid them yet, so they're not sure. I mean, we only see $90 so far this year.
But they're gonna spend that out.
Yeah. And as they use their assessments, they need to replace them. It's not like an assessment that you can photocopy. You have to use a new assessment. For a lot of different things.
Yeah,
House
they
priorities too.
They corner the market right there.
Do not duplicate the forms.
Not duplicate the form.
They also, part of their supplies every year is they recalibrate their machine to different dollars. That's also included in there. OT?
OT 132, the line, first one on the 2nd page. Currently, you see the amount right there, 59, offsetting revenue for 50% of the position and benefits.
This is a full-time position that we fund. We receive 50% revenue from Hinsdale, because this person does work in Hinsdale. And then there's an assistant who is funded in Hinsdale that we pick up half the cost for under our related services, which we haven't gotten to yet. So we do share the resources. And they pay half of everything. They do pay exactly 50% of the health insurance, the dental, the social security, the retirement, and the salary.
But this person calls the school home.
Yep.
Yes.
There's another person that's here half the time that calls Hinsdale home.
So,
Our- Two Supplies has had a list of supplies that they've needed. We were able to fill some last year, again, through the IDEA grant, but they still have additional needs.
The board understood OT is occupation.
Going? As Val had mentioned, the discipline support staff salary has been zeroed. That was the former ISS person. And that's something that the new adjustment counselor would pick up some of those duties.
So we don't have an in-school suspension anymore, is that what we're saying?
That is correct.
That's fantastic news.
Mm-hmm.
Tuition reimbursements and staff developments, lines 144 to 147. So teacher tuition reimbursements and teacher workshops is a negotiated item. So any amounts that are current would roll into this operating budget. Any increases would be shown in a warrant article. So the first two lines, and then Val, do you want to talk about the staff developments, or Jim?
Well, the non-discretionary, we have to have the flexibility. If we see a workshop or coming up or an opportunity to bring somebody in, we need to have that, the flexibility, have the person come in here and see what's out there. There may be a workshop that we know would be very beneficial to a particular group of folks, and we want to be able to send those folks to those people.
A good example of something that has happened this year that we've used that line for is that we had the opportunity to participate in a year-long course, essentially, in Orton Gillingham training, which is a really well-known program that's really the only thing out there that's proven to work with students with dyslexia, and none of our staff are trained in Orton Gillingham. So there are a lot of components of it that many of our staff are familiar with, but no one has been trained. And so we found a trainer who was willing to come here, and she's coming every week and doing the training with a group of teachers. So for the teachers who are part of the collective bargaining unit, they were able to take that money out of that collectively bargained line.
Mhm.
But we have a number of Title I staff who see more of our students than a single classroom teacher does, because they see students across the school, and they don't have a professional development line. So the only time that they have money for professional development is if there's an overage in the Title I or Title II grants that they can pull from. So we were able to provide, to share that cost with Title I. So there are two Title I tutors who were taking the course, and we're paying part of it and they're paying part of it. And so they were able to take that into that and serves more of our kids in the building. But we also talked about using this line, the collectively bargained lines are for teachers to find things that they want to go to and request approval, and then we give approval and we pay for it and they go. But we also talked about the need to be able to say to a teacher, here's something I think would be really beneficial to you. We'd really like for you to go to this. And it's easier to do that with a line that we have control over rather than
The collective bargaining.
Yep.
collectively bargained.
Good. And so as we have gone through all the other lines regarding professional development, they've all been zeroed out. That's where this line comes in, line 147. So this line supports 12 full-time people. I think 11 full-time people and 1 part-time person in staff development. So that's where you get the $500 per person that I had talked about under social, under guidance. An average class at Keene State, I think, is $12.50. Is that a credit? $16.50.
It's up to like 4 something credit, yeah.
Yeah.
So if it was going to be a class at the college, you've got 12 people and $16.50, that's $19,800. So what we did is we took an average of what classes people have been taking in the past. Sometimes it's a $400 workshop that they'd like to go to.
Yep.
Not including the travel, of course. So we averaged that out, and that's where we decided to put in 10,000.
So reasonable.
Looks like we've spent pretty close to what was budgeted previously, and we're on the line to continue to spend it out on this budget.
You see, there seems to be a theme tonight, doesn't it?
I'm an advocate for educating our
There you go.
staff as much as we educate our children.
Well, if you remember from last year's budget season, we had talked about getting the people into the positions that we restructured a lot of the positions. Next year, it's really focused on investing and adding support to those people that we put in the positions for this year.
Going back to the non-discretionary line, we see ourselves using that entire line this year, right?
Absolutely.
I was surprised.
$800 left.
And then,
I already have $1,200. Let's see, we narrow it down.
all right, moving on.
Curriculum development salaries, line 180, I'm sorry, 148.
So in the past, 'cause we restructured this position. In the past, this position was 50% grant funded from Title IIA and 50% shown here. So if you look even at this year's budget, changed it after budget, in years past, that's how this is set up. For next year, currently how this position is set up is, it's still 50% grant funded from Title IIA, but it's 50% of what the curriculum coordinator position is, which is 69.2% of the position. So out of 100%, 69.2 is considered curriculum coordinator, 50% of that is grant funded.
Gotcha.
The other 30.8 is assistant principal. And I will connect in the notes what lines they end up being at the end. But you'll see that further down when we talk about assistant principal. So.
I really like how you broke that down to 69.2%.
Well, what does that
How we
mean?
show it
And
for
when
you.
you're talking about grant funding, and this question came up a lot, I know, we're asking Mel the question, what percentage of the position, and she's saying, that's not how this works.
Right.
We get an amount in that grant, and so she's saying, this is the amount that can be spent out of that grant, and here are the things it can be spent on.
Right.
So what that strange percentage represents is that amount
And everything you can spend
placed
on.
toward the salary and as much as you could spend on.
And this grant is decreasing slightly year over year.
Oh, great.
And the health and benefits, I haven't plugged in again because of, not only because of the percentage, but also if the grant decreases, that's usually where we've changed and picked up more of the costs. As far as that grant goes. So I think this year it wasn't exactly 50% for health, but it all works out in the end.
That was driving you crazy, Alicia?
You plan one thing and then it's, no, it's fine, it's budgeting.
Anna?
Curriculum development, professional development for curriculum coordinator.
Yeah, the curriculum coordinator is just that, leads the curriculum of the school. There's trainings come out all the time, there's new way of doing things, new and better research-based things. The curriculum coordinator needs to be on top of it, needs to be on the cutting edge. And the only way that's going to happen is if the person is exposed to different workshops, educating, trainings, etc. You need that person to be on top of things.
And this person also takes, as you guys know, does all the Power School writing of the standards-based report card,
Yep.
which I know is always fun. Some districts that would be picked up by technology, so, but in this case, it's not, it is funded through here. And then the Power School, we talked about, it's 2,500 just for the school.
And we talked about doing that every other year, and the good news on that is that this coming summer, it will be in Boston, so there won't be need for a flight and all that.
Not
For
Washington.
travel?
Yeah.
Where are you traveling to?
Take a flight from Manchester to Boston.
Yeah.
But again, important, Power School monthly meetings, I think, I am going to the next line, but just that communication, just that ability to bounce ideas off other folks who know Power School, it's a huge deal. You see the curriculum monthly meetings in Henniker. Henniker is a good central place. I mean, Southwestern superintendent's meetings are in Henniker too, also SAU 24, which is real convenient for me because it's one town over. But not so.
If you're there, you can start the day. If you're not down here to start the day.
Yeah, well, that's the case.
So that line item is already been overspent for this.
3 months in.
Yeah, 3 months in.
Absolutely.
And so this new number, the $8,000, that's proposed for next year, Considering that we're only 3 months in and we've already overspent that particular line, do you feel like the 8 is, I mean, clearly I can tell that you're trying to be very budget
We are,
conscious
we are.
to areas
And I
that
appreciate
aren't
you saying that.
necessary or less, I don't even want to say aren't necessary, I want to say a little further down on the priority
But
list.
we-
You know,
yeah,
priority list
yeah, we
sometimes
try to
goes
be aware of that.
horizontally. Do you think that's an accurate number? Does that give you what is needed out of that position?
Well, it will give us a large chunk. My knee-jerk response is we'll probably overspend the line. Maybe something happens along the line.
You think you'd overspend 8,000?
The curriculum coordinator was tasked by the board to get a degree as soon as possible, within 18 months. 18 months, I believe it was. And this is part of that. I do. Courses are expensive. If I think about the amount and the timeline, how many courses? 5 within the next 6 months or
5
so?
times 82.
8250, so actually we're not pretty close.
Well, then maybe that number
High
should.
school.
I know we very intentionally did our budgeting this year so that we didn't necessarily continuously flip to the final number. I wouldn't mind if you thought about that line a little bit
Yeah,
more.
thank you.
Because just in a quick calculation, we already know we're going to be $250 over, and we're already overspent that line by $2,000 almost.
But that's a very healthy way to look at this, and we certainly appreciate that. And I appreciate what you said also, but we are being conscious of the budget. We are flexible. What can we do? We are acutely aware that there's not a whole lot of money in town. The voters have to pay their taxes. But I appreciate the support on that.
Val, is that $4,300, is that spent for, workshops and classes in the spring too? I mean, have you prepaid for, that is just everything in the past up to now? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Just, you see we've zeroed out a couple lines here, just as we analyze what we may or may not need, we adjust it accordingly.
We did try something new last year when we had $100 set aside for each grade level to do the Teachers Pay Teachers website. That was what is, it was $900 plus $200 for the curriculum coordinator supplies. So when you look at the 1,100, that's how it breaks down. It did work out well, and that's why we had budgeted in the curriculum lines for this year. So this year's budget for supplies for curriculum coordinator is $200. And instead we'd have to move that to books next year. You get your supplies out of general supplies for the most part.
Yeah, initially the $200 for supplies was to, prepare for binders and being able to organize all of the units that we were getting, but I don't use a lot of supplies to do those things at this point, other than, pen, paper,
General supply.
general supply things, so I don't see a need for anything.
And then books and printed material. The latest research usually comes out in a book. So, the books are cheap. Anything else about curriculum development? Nope. So let us move on to the school library salaries, line 162. Currently in our library, we have 2 positions. It's an interesting setup. We have one person who does part-time library, part-time art, it's a full-time person. And then we have someone who's part-time library captain, who is also part-time library teacher and part-time paraprofessional.
So we have one total full-time librarian with no assistants or anything as far as support goes. So it's a shared position, which was new last year. As you can see that there was nothing spent. That's because those 2 individuals came out of the teachers' line. So they were here. It was, when you you look at what their salaries were, it still was under the budget. They were captured in salaries, teacher salary lines. But we did have a new assistant last year. Which we found was neat.
We felt as we structured and moved on, we did not need it.
And we had a
We've done
computer teacher added.
That's right, that's right. And there's a lot of analysis here. Get the biggest bang for buck.
Yeah, and analysis happens every year.
You bet.
And as you get the people in, you learn from them what the library needs. So in speaking with them, what they really could use is a handheld scanner that scans the books in. So they spend a lot of time trying to reorganize the books and scan them in, and that's why you can see some empty spaces on the shelves. Students have books out, but they also have books that need to get returned. Something quick and easy as a scanner, so they can pick up and check them in.
Yeah.
It's $1,200. It's added to the purchase services library automation line. So the library automation system is about $1,300. This would add the $1,200 to that, and then some additional training for the new member that we have this year. We had an open position that halftime, one of the halftime positions became new this year.
That's right.
Do they foresee themselves using the 2,000 that we've already put in the line last year? For this year?
We haven't seen anything yet.
No, we have,
Have we?
Yeah.
That's not it, yeah.
yeah. So this is it's an annual bill for the services through Follett, but there are different breakouts, there are different levels of service. And so the bill that we have received from them, we're working with the librarians to identify what they're using and what they're not using as part of that. So you're seeing zero spent there, but there will be money spent.
And last year, we did pay the $1,300 to use the system. We actually had a credit from the year before that offset this, which is why you only see the expense of $987.
Okay.
In addition to that, they offer training on their systems, but they charge usually a few $100s per person to use it. So I would anticipate the new individual using the existing software as well as both people needing just some sort of training on the scanner and how to use it.
The more effective that is, the more kids can take out books, and more kids taking out books, and more kids are reading.
But then the following year, we won't need to purchase a scanner.
Right.
As long as we retain the people, and we won't need the
Training.
training.
Alicia, how do you get the 40,000 for salary?
So one individual is 50% para, and their salary based on their years of experience at 50%. Their contract is signed for $21,403.
So you take half of that?
Nope, the $21,403 is half of what the teacher's salary would be if they were full-time.
Okay, all right.
And then $37,877.
So that still
That you
doesn't
would take
add
half.
up.
Yeah, did I do that wrong?
So the
I did just-
37,877 is the one you would take half of and add to the
Yeah.
20.
Yeah. Yeah, that adds up. It's 50% of 37,877 plus 21,403.
Right, so it's actually 18,938.50 plus 21,403.
And because it is a shared position, they do qualify for New Hampshire retirement. For their full salary. No benefits. And there is still a spot open for health benefits for the halftime teacher to be split there. So supplies educational subscriptions. Had a conversation today as well as far as, last year I think, Mr. Lewis, you had purchased USA Today, and we had the subscription to the Keene Sentinel. In talking with the new librarian, they really like to get some magazine subscriptions in that the kids really want to read. I think they had 17, and she goes, I don't think that's appropriate, I'm going to let that one run out. But perhaps maybe something more like Teen Bop,
Tiger
or
Beat,
even
so-
sports.
Yes,
They said the kids
sports.
are really interested in sports.
Yeah,
and-
it's a national thing.
Yeah. Well, they have the whole collection of National Geographic here.
But the National Geographic Kids magazines are much fun.
Yes.
Running in and out, don't you?
And we want them to pick it up,
Bring
so
your
let's give
red
them something. to learn.
highlights for the
So-
little ones, something like that.
Yeah.
You'll see some subscriptions coming in now to be used in that for this year. And books and other resource information, you know, we kept this, I think we had originally had this line at one year, we were proposing $8,000, but we had talked about getting a grant for $7,000 for the library, but we didn't get that grant, if you recall. And we had decreased our budget accordingly. They certainly could use, I bet you they could use more than $5,000
Sure.
next year for books. One, for replacing old books, but two is that they want to complete a lot of the series. So as the students start to read volume 1 and 2, they really want to continue with that series.
Right.
So do the teachers. And so do the teachers. Yeah. And I have to tell you, being part of an advisory and having students, it's so interesting to hear students come in and go, oh, I read that book, that was really good. Like, that's what they're conversing about.
Right.
Not what did you watch last night on TV, or did you play that video game? It was, oh, what did you think about that book? And it's just, it's like an awe when you're hearing 7th and 8th graders talk about what books they're reading.
Yeah, you don't want them getting to
And,
book 6
and
out of
allowing them to
7.
be
right.
able to come down and request a book to be ordered for the library that they want to read.
Yeah.
Where they might not be able to run out, whether it was a funds situation or just the convenience of going to get a book. The fact that they can ask for it and get it requested is pretty amazing.
There's nothing's been had that line before.
They do.
Okay,
We
but-
just ordered some books. It's on the credit card that we're breaking out.
All right.
So they order. I think he's ordered about $300 worth, and we have another wish list that's pending, waiting for the rec to go through.
It is, it's absolutely.
And we also will do the Scholastic warehouse sales. That was a big hit last year. I went down with the librarians, and I would love to get some teachers involved in that. Last year, what we did was kind of give them a flyer and say, are there any books you're looking for? And we'll watch out for them. But we saved a lot of money doing the warehouse sale. And they're new books, but they're discounted because they're coming back from book fairs that didn't sell. So they've been on a cart and they've left the warehouse, and rather than put them back in, they sell them for cheap. So you got a lot of books last year that way. So as those come up, you'll see that line spend down.
I do notice that the library shelves have a lot more books than they used to.
Mhm.
Like, say, 3 years ago. It was
They
almost
do.
like half empty. So it's nice to see it much more fuller than it used to be.
Sure. We'd like to see it full. And as students take the books and when they get old or used, wouldn't it be nice to hand those, you take this one home, we would replace it with a new one. That's what we want. We want people to, we want the kids to respect the books. And I think we should get started. There's so many series out now, and that's a money maker for book publishing companies too, just obviously we got a lot. We want to do that. We want to be that. They want to read the books. I mean, shame on us if we can't be library.
I think they enjoy reading a newer conditioned book.
Yeah.
Sure they do.
Than one that has been, with
Well, we all
written
do.
in.
If you pick a book and the cover falls off,
Or it's sticky.
you know,
Yeah.
You don't really want to hold on to it and read it, or put it, on your bed.
Can we-
I do it.
Time to move on. Time to move on.
Well, question about the books too. Couldn't we do something like when you guys send home like the order forms for books, like put in the newsletter, like we're trying to expand the library, even if one person buys one book or one series, like, the Magic Tree House for 8 books, it's like $12. I mean, maybe we could do something like that too, to get some more books in. Or if you ever want
Always. Once in a while, someone will donate some books, and some of them are good, and some of them are just inappropriate for what we have. We've
Right.
had to throw away a few. You hate to throw anything away, a book, but it was, well, I don't think we did this, but yeah.
Yeah, yes.
The books were not right
But
for our.
along that same line, another way that we do get books from the libraries, we do a Scholastic Book Fair in the spring, and we time it around parent conference time so that families are in, and we do set up a way for them to donate books to classroom teachers or to the library, or to donate their change to the box, and then we're able to buy books out of that too. And we get a good percentage of sales, and if we meet our goals, we get even more. And so we do have the ability to purchase books that way, either for classroom libraries or for the library.
Yeah, they're always a hit,
Yeah.
always.
I hate the benefit ones with that,
You know,
but
that's.
no, you do not need a $2 eraser today.
Well, that's the Happy Meal syndrome.
And you're
The
not
little
even seeing all
fries.
the junk There's a lot of junk that stays in that back room that never hits the floor of the slab.
Selective.
I like
It
that.
has to be.
And a lot of the stuff that's out when parents are here is not out when the kids are shopping alone, because we know that parents are giving them money for books. And we
Right.
don't want them coming home with a bag full of junk.
Yeah.
So a lot of those things don't come out until the parents are here, so that they can make those determinations. Kids are coming in, you know, the bookmarks are out, and the
Right.
erasers might be out, but all of the toys and other things are not, unless the parents are here to make that decision.
So the next section is the superintendent salary as well as the superintendent staff salary. Can be a little confusing, so I'll go slow here. So in past, in past, the superintendent line, so the last 2 years, this was 2/3 superintendent and 1/3 was principal. So as you remember, we had a combined superintendent principal position that we changed for this year and budgeted $90,000 for the superintendent. Currently, the position though is at $92,006. That is nothing comparable to a full-time superintendent. I wasn't able to pull any figures yet off the Dewey, but it's public record. You can go on there and take a look at what a full-time superintendent makes in the area. I think, Jim, you had talked a little bit about what other superintendents have
Oh,
said.
yeah, there's no secret about that. I mean, there's, Winchester, I always, like, the magic of the kingdom. People who come here, they don't do it for the money. They do it for the magic of helping kids, and that's proved by many people right here in the building. We don't come here to get rich. Yeah, there was an article in the King Sentinel, it was last year, and it listed Conval at 140, Keene at 129, whatever, and then there was Winchester. I don't have a problem with that. Looking to the future, I mean, I could drop dead, I suppose, and you might have to replace somebody. You would be hard pressed to find somebody for that amount. I just want to throw that out there. I'm not planning on dropping dead, but
I don't think you do.
keep it open.
So the position in the past has been combined superintendent principal. It's actually at a higher salary than it is now,
Right.
but which is fully recognized in that line 185. So that's something that needs to be considered, I think.
And you're talking specifically because there seems to be a jump between the 15-16 and the 16-17.
But you need to understand
Yeah.
that it's not a jump, it's actually a decrease, I think, by
Right.
over 10,000.
It is.
in
It
that
is.
line. So the next line is the superintendent staff salary. So this is one person's position. 2/3 of the salary is recognized here, and then 1/3 is recognized in admin sped staff salary, which we had covered previously, which will need to be adjusted. So the current person is earning a total of the 46,000, proposing 48,500. As we talk about the position, thinking it may be vacated in a few years due to retirement, we really need to plan about what we're going to do with the position. It's really actually 3 different job roles now. This person
That's
is
good to
doing.
say.
And I know, Trevor, you had mentioned even for like my own salary, it might not be you in the position. And that's something that we really need to consider with this one, all of these, I think.
This one would be the priority, in your opinion?
This one is the
I
one we
think
need to
so.
really plan, and we've talked for the last few days about what would our strategy be? In 2 years, how are we gonna break those job duties out? Is it gonna be a full-time person? Is it gonna be 2 full-time people? Is it gonna be a full-time person and a part-time person?
Well, it's like so many things around here. We have people doing 2 jobs. And you wouldn't get someone, especially the knowledge that the individual in the position now has. So I completely support what Alicia's saying. We need to
This person does
our strategy.
This person does our I4C, which is normally done through a technology director. But as Val had mentioned earlier, we don't have a technology director. This person knew the system and took that upon themselves to continue doing that service. But normally it wouldn't fall to this role, I don't think at all.
No.
At all. So that's one part. Another part is HR. You know, when you think about, if this is not a secretarial position, this is the HR director for a company.
Yeah.
And if you compare what HR directors make in a company, about 3 times the amount of, just for HR. HR is really your focus. If you do everything correctly through HR, whether you hire people, you're fingerprinting them correctly, you're coaching them, you're documenting, holding
Right.
people accountable. It's going to save you in legal expenses tremendously. That's why Primex offers us free HR counseling for questions that we have regarding employees.
It's also anything with power.
Yeah, I was gonna say, any other insurance
Change,
issues, the
employees,
points. Yep.
open enrollment is a big time. All of the benefits that come through our health insurance providers, the monthly things that they do trainings for, all of those things are set up through this position as well. And it's also, I think, worth noting that the 48.5 is still not what that position was making when it was summarily cut 5 years ago. And the workload, I would argue, is higher at this point with the I4C and also working with a less experienced central office staff overall.
And, keep going on and on. Also overseeing all ed and Medicaid now,
And there's homelessness as well.
and special ed transportation.
So that's really.
And the smallest piece is the secretarial position.
Absolutely.
Which is what we
Absolutely.
considered when we positioned the salary decrease.
I think we have a unique person
Yeah.
in this position. We're fortunate to have this person in this position, as you said. But you're right, I think we do need to, you know, if we're going to be a proactive team here, we have to look down the
That's
road
right. That's
and figure out what we're going to do. And that, you know, this is basically on your side. It's having a talk with this person, and so we can make a plan.
Yep.
Like we've said, I mean, we could all not come through the door tomorrow.
Sure.
But what is our long-term plan?
And
What's the best way in which we should approach this?
And we think this is, because we have had preliminary conversation, and we think this is a step in the direction of a longer range plan.
So the current proposed is the 48.5, and what was the number here, the 32, that we see is the 2/3, and then we already previously discussed the balance of that 48.5 on the admin special education staff line. Okay.
We didn't though, at the time we had only increased it to 1.5. So when we go back through,
Yep.
1/3 will need to be adjusted.
And it sounds like we're going to make it through one more year like that, but next year around this time, we're going to have a more serious conversation about that positions for the next budget.
It's the reality. What we don't want to do is, Kevin, you're exactly right. We got to have a plan,
Yep.
a 2, 4, 5-year plan ahead, because we do not want to get caught. That's when we scramble. That's when we're not going around.
Mistakes happen.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
In anything.
if
And
you don't
I
have-
own that mistake. And I have admitted it every day.
I just mean like,
We
in
don't let her
any-
forget it.
every day.
I was
That's
told
how
you were a
we agree with
secretary,
it.
and you were not a secretary. Not a secretary.
I think it's also important to note too that, you know, like you said, Alicia, if you don't have the right person in the position,
Right.
it's going to cost you more down the road. This person has, it seems to me like this person has like 3.5 positions.
Yeah.
Because she's been in it so long that she's able to do that.
Right.
Anybody new coming in,
Right, would be completely lost. Okay, well, I can't wait to hear what the administration's plan is.
Good.
this is the plan. Merit increases for non-CBU. In the past, we have created this line to encumber everybody who was non-CBU at the 1.5, whatever the range was at the time. The one that you see here for 15-16 was also 1.5% based on salaries. I mentioned previously that it's more work to break it out by line, but it actually is more transparent when you see why did we budget this and we overspent it. It was because of the merit increase from the year before. So it's zeroed out, it was included in all the salary lines. Health insurance, again, we need to come back to once we receive those rates from NHIT. Dental insurance is not changing, so that's going to be the same, exactly the same from year to year. Disability and life insurance for professional staff. So we don't offer short-term disability to anybody in the school. For our teaching staff, they're able to have sick days with carryover in case something happens. This disability is really long-term disability that would cover something after 3 months of an injury. And the life insurance for professional staff includes our teaching staff as well as our administration, and it's a flat 40,000 life insurance for everybody. So I don't know how much 40,000 is going to cover, you know, family, but we don't have the quote yet for that cost, so we'll discuss it at a future meeting.
No, but just to differentiate, when you're talking about short-term and long-term disability, that is outside of workers' comp.
Yes.
So when you said if they were
Oh,
out for an
yes.
injury, it would be an
Not a
unrelated to
work-related,
employment.
not a work-related injury. Or no.
Or, yeah.
Social Security for both of these positions. And again, the salary for superintendent salary staff is just 2/3. It's based on the salary that you see above. Both of those positions are considered non-teacher retirement, so that increase went from 11.17% to 11.38%. Unemployment comp and workers' comp we'll discuss together as we get those quotes from Primex.
And did I miss that? Does Primex also do our, do they do our short-term out?
No,
Our
we don't have-
long-term?
yeah.
I mean, our long-term?
No, that is actually the Hartford.
The Hartford.
But the Primex has a third component, which is the property liability, which will fall under facilities. Do all those together. So purchase services SAU. Typically what's come out of this line has been a lot of different services that the SAU has, like even some shredding services, what we're budgeting for, and that's what, last year you can see a huge over expenditure. And if you recall, we started with School Spring, which was $2,000.
We needed it.
We did need it. And in fact, because we have it, we were able to hire additional people, and we'll be able to save on posting and legal ads. So in this line is built in $2,000 for School Spring again for next year.
The price isn't going up at all.
We don't expect it to.
If it does.
And then it's $40 a quarter for the shred. We have 2 shred bins. We have one up at the SAU and one here down at the main office, so that's $160. But we have little things here and there that come up for purchase services. Background checks. Background checks are $47 per employee and $20.75 for a volunteer. You can see last year we overspent the line. It really depends on what we're doing as far as hiring goes. A lot of this happens to be paraprofessional staff. We have some turnover, and so we have additional background checks. One thing that we're looking at is there's been a period of time the background checks were never required, and everybody that was previous to that was grandfathered in. So those people that have never had background checks, and
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So is some of this going back to some of those grandfather?
Well, some of the things that we've discussed is, and Monadnock does this, is that every year, regardless if the employee has left or not, or at least their coaching staff or their sports-related staff that are really involved with students more closely, we'll say, they fingerprint and do background checks every year on those employees. And I said, we probably should start doing that next year, at least that. And then periodically going back, however she does it alphabetically, people who have been here the longest, and getting all of those background checks for the people that have never had them. Yeah. And maybe the board needs to make a policy, or at least to advise a procedure on, if you've been here 5 years, we redo background checks. So once you have one done and you're hired, they don't do them again.
Where did the decision come to grandfather in?
Federal.
Okay. Can you define a volunteer?
Someone that doesn't get paid.
So,
Could you define how that role falls in the school setting?
Or a teacher. Somebody that does various things.
A parent who comes in and reads the class.
Reads the class, was copying for the.
We also have some volunteers from the Community Rotary Club who come in 1 or 2 days a week, and they give their times to teachers, and they send kids out to do some one-on-one reading with them. Just an opportunity for kids to have another adult to read to, or to another adult to hear read. and it's a volunteer, but because we require the background check.
Thank you.
So we've increased the budget to include at least some new plans to either background check people that haven't been background checked, or background check more closely related student positions. Questions?
Sounds like another policy that we'll be tasked with.
It probably would be a bad idea instead of talk about that.
Uh-huh.
Trust management fees for charter trusts. So since there's been some changes, and I haven't had confirmation from the trustees yet, a lot of the fees are coming directly out of our investments. In fact, our investments are doing much better than they have in the past. And we go over warrant articles, we can discuss that further. But we did make money last year. I think it was about $1,600 instead of losing $1,200. So I'd like to at least leave a little thing in that line, just in case they do something different next year. But dropping the fees from $1,525 to $500.
Do we expect any of this 1525 to be
Nope.
spent this year?
Nope, I don't, unless they do something different this year. Okay. Staff development SAU, so this covers 5 people, I believe. You, Taylor, Ronnie, myself, Brooke, Julian. For any type of staff development. And this was to cover a class for you and for Taylor for this year. We'd like to increase that to 6,000 for next year, so you know you're gonna need more classes.
And actually, I think that the board had tasked you with some of those things as well. So I asked you to go back to that number, just like you did for the curriculum coordinator, and make sure that it's accurate.
Thank you.
Postage SAU is one of 2 postage lines in the school. The other falls to the next section. SAU does a lot of mailings, not necessarily the newsletter, but a lot of times we'll be mailing out student records, which we try to post to the salaries, but we do a lot of things for all of the specialists as well. And as you can see, we've always spent close to 1,000, if not over 1,000. So we'd like to increase that from 750 to 1,000. We've already spent 977 this year.
3 months in.
A lot of times, a lot of your mailings would be at the beginning of the year, though, not when students are changing schools. Ads and legal.
Did you ever get a postage machine?
No, we did not. It costs us actually more money to do
Yeah.
that. And only one person has access to the machine because it's computer-based. So if that person isn't here, you cannot mail anything.
It actually no longer would cost us more money.
It was, there was another.
It is the convenience of the machine, but we looked into it and told us how this.
And I know you forwarded
It's
up
not-
what your machine has, but we looked at it and it wasn't gonna.
Not for our office, it's just not big enough. I mean, there are times, and I think this came when we were talking about maybe a newsletter or something that was going to be mailed out, how easy it would be. It was something, I mean, it was reported, I forget exactly what it was in the summer. And that one day, sure, there was a lot of, put the stamps on. But we didn't do it. Yeah. It was a lot of money. It was worth it to just do the sticker stamps.
Well, what we do to keep track, because I think the concern originally was, well, we don't know if it's the postage SAU, is it postage admin, is we have a log for every roll of stamps that are used between each. So at the end of the year, we calculate out who has what, and then throw it out. And it saves us $400.
So it was really just a process improvement.
As recruitment, legal posting, so now with recruitment and ads, we really are utilizing the School Spring website, so we don't need to have as many ads as we do, with the
That's
exception
right.
of maybe
Bids.
bids for snow plowing and anything else that we need to put out to bid. I think there was one other one besides snow plowing.
Electric or plumbing.
Yeah, I mean, if we look for teachers and staff, we'll streamline it to the school spring.
We've kind of just reallocated that line.
Well, you have to
too.
post
But
your
we're doing
public
it more
hearing,
efficient.
you have to
Yeah.
post things like that. Budget meeting. Travel SAU management services, so we increased this line because we knew with the positions changing from superintendent / principal to superintendent, that you'd be traveling more, visiting other schools as well as
Absolutely.
court.
There's those quarters.
And as you can see, we've already spent $738 out of this line. And that's not even including my travel yet. So, there's this manifest, it's gonna be over 1,100.
But, and that's the best thing we can do. Everyone agrees with this. The idea is to go to high performance schools, find out what's going on, find out the things that we can do, or even find out the things that we're already doing that are best practices and just reinforces what we should be doing. But we had done this a few years ago, traveling, we calculated the higher performance schools, like one was Greenland, one was Gilmanton. We went there, and we actually saw some things. A good use of money to go there and find out.
And there's a few $100s, there's a few $100 in this line that needs to get moved to special ed travel that we had talked about previously, that was at 0.
Okay.
So that individual will be moving that.
Because I'm looking at that spent to date, even if you do $500, you're still at like $2,500 for a year. And so I'm just wondering if that line's just a little bit short. Although.
My traveling is done. I mean, my traveling is that one conference that happens at the beginning of the school year. Yeah, but yours is gonna be.
Mine would continue through the year. Mine's usually short trips.
Yeah.
It's up to Keene, or it might be out to Granite Hill or something like that. I mean, I have the luxury of living in Hopkinton, so going to the DOE is like 5 miles.
Right.
So it doesn't add up that fast.
Supplies, SAU management fees, we level funded that. We did come close to almost exactly to the line last year, 1465. This includes anything from binders to printing of checks to envelopes, a box of envelopes that we use for accounts payable is close to $50. We also had about $400 or $500 worth of supplies for W-2s in the window envelopes for that, 1099s, as well as the new ACA. So that order, I think in itself is close to $500 already for this year, which I think is what you did in this manifest. Was it here? Other supplies, I guess would just be like all of the HR stuff that Maureen has mostly. SAU hospitality, we had increased that last year to this year to 500. We'd like to level fund that for next year. That includes any type of reward and recognition to staff. If we have a meeting where we have people coming to an event, we've had King's Board come down a couple times. Software SAU management, that is our Tyler Tech software, which costs $13,200, which we budgeted for. After budget season, we were then presented with a $3,400 bill that included our hosting fees. So we will be under budgeted in this line this year. So we'd like to bring that back up to where we were last year at $17,500. Questions? The only reason the furniture line is in here is because we had an expense last year, purchasing some bookshelves and chairs for the SAU. Bookshelves were a good investment.
Absolutely.
Do you need more file cabinets?
No, we actually emptied one out. We're looking at ways to store information. Currently, it goes into a box and then it goes into the basement. And I'm concerned if that basement ever floods, which has happened with the
Sounds familiar.
Well, we now have to keep records for 10 years versus 7. And so as you accrue 3 more years worth of stuff, although we have a lot in my office, safe from flooding. It's something that we're looking into. But we have the final cabinets. We have extras in storage. Thank you.
It always has to be hard copies?
A lot of the grants are requiring
Original documents.
So there's been some concern with, our accounting system has the capability of scanning in the
Yeah.
document and holding it in the accounting system software.
Yeah.
Which is, you pay for it on the manual labor side, but then the storing of it is there.
Right.
But
They
a lot of the
want
grants
original.
still want original.
Yeah.
And I think the RSA still says original documents.
I think it does too. I mean, as time goes on, it'll probably switch over.
And that was according to
You'll
our
have
clerk.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have to store it off-site to be safe.
I still have to copy things onto green paper for some specific jurisdictions that I do work with.
Yeah.
Green paper. So. I like it how they like it.
So the only reason the line's there is because we had an expenditure last year. Dues and fees, SAU management, this includes all of the membership fees to NH,
Full administration.
yeah, forget all the acronyms, but.
That's good.
It includes my conference, my membership fee is $150 a year. Our special ed out of district is $100. This also includes our credit card fee of $150 a year, which we'll be paying on our next manifest. So that's all the dues and fees for SAU management. And if you want to know why last year's was a little bit under budget, it's because we didn't pay Jim's membership last year, $1,200. We got away with
We
it.
got all the benefits, we don't know how that happened.
Certification reimbursement, SAU, so this is a contractual obligation. This is, both our teacher and our support staff have in their contract that we will reimburse them for their renewal of their certification, not their original certification, but the renewal. Teachers are $130, and we anticipate 15 teachers being recertified next year, as well as 10 paraprofessionals. And budgeted accordingly.
This line is gonna be spent this year? Okay.
Maybe not 100%. The certificates happen usually at the end of the year.
It is.
Okay.
You want to take the next section?
Yeah, I sure do. And I realize, folks, I want to be appreciative of the time, but I'm hoping we can just continue to go through this because we seem to be
Oh.
on pretty well. So
We're-
you guys
yeah,
wanna
we're-
hang in?
This isn't a budget meeting, cut you off at 2 hours, so
Good. Good.
it's ended.
School board meeting, you can go to the left.
Stop
Well,
it.
we don't want to get
No,
fooled here.
don't get carried away.
Yeah.
Where's that hospitality line?
Line 210, school administration salaries. And you'll see the difference here just because of the structure that we have. The superintendent and principal combined. Right now, school administration salary, you see the breakdown at the end. The principal, 91,350, and the assistant principal at 19,539. Again, we spoke about that earlier. It is.
It's only 30.8%.
Yeah, it's only 30.8%.
That's right, that's the key to keep in mind. It includes the maximum increase that we've seen. And again, as you go down, we'll fill this in as the information becomes available to us.
One thing with Mr. Dufresne being out, we didn't want to preempt what you'd like to have for some of these sections for his secretary. How you'd like to schedule, he may want to change the number of days or hours or however that works, so we wanted to leave that open. And then the benefits, health, dental, we need to add, I'm not sure.
That's right.
Um,
Social
Social Security admin ties to all 3 lines, but we don't have that 1 line filled, so that will increase. Non-teacher retirement, school admin will be for the assistant principal, which should be figured in there. So that line will be $2,223.50. Plus whatever the secretary salary is. That's right. Teacher retirement is based solely on the principal's salary on line 210. And then purchase services, school admin. In the past, we haven't budgeted the shred bin that is in the main office. We actually added a shred bin to the main office for convenience for people, instead of having the elementary people walk all the way to SAU, they can at least come to the main office. That's $40 a quarter, so $160 a year. Postage for school administration.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see it, sometimes it's higher than other years. Right now, please don't be deceived by the $36.25 that we spent so far, that is going to be posted there. So we've just had just a flat line. I think it's a fair amount, it gives us information, gives us a little bit of a room that we can use. Printing, school administration, you see the same, as we go through, overspent it back 2 years ago, went up to $750, and then we used $99, so again, we targeted that.
I think we ended up doing $300 on your printing that was on the credit card.
Oh, yes,
Just for printing.
I'm not even.
Oh, the magnets.
The magnets, the magnets that we'd be giving away short, Christmas magnets.
It's a handy spot right there on the refrigerator.
And And travel in
I've
conferences.
used that actually.
I'm telling you, we know what we'll do.
Travel and conferences, school administration. So again, it's these three positions, which is principal. In the past, we only had two positions, really. And so we'd like to increase that. Again, the plan was second year, get the
Yep.
training,
Yep.
send people to the conferences that they need to go.
Yeah, and I think there's a reality here too. We do still have a new principal, although it seems like it might be valuable in the position for lots, I've been through lots. And then learning the time of year. Next year, we expect us to be off and running. That's the reality in the justification.
Supply school administration, so they get most of their supplies out of the general supplies, but this includes birthday cards and
Yeah.
pencils and things that they do for the students directly for supplies. I don't think there's anything else that they really needed. I think this year we might have purchased, furniture to establish a principal office. And as we have three positions for dues and fees, school administration, feel that the principal may have some memberships as well that they'd like to join.
Sure.
And then just miscellaneous staff appreciation, increase that by $100. Very quiet.
Excuse me?
You guys are very quiet.
When Mr. Dupree returns, I'm sure we'll get updated numbers for this section.
I turn it over to Val to talk about IT support, which formerly was a line listed as IT director, which we changed today. Correct.
So the first line is the salary line, and again, it's just the current salary with the max merit increase. And the next line is the health insurance, which is clearly not health insurance, but rather file. And then social security, not teacher retirement. The tech support line is the old tech support line when we formerly had a director and a part-time tech support, so that line is zeroed out. And then IT contracted services, this is where SimQuest services come in. So that's with the safety net, that's a monthly fee, which is currently at $13.95. But as the phone project is finished, all of the switches are now part of the system. So if we add the switches, management of the switches to the system, then we're looking at $1,500 monthly, $13.95.
So is it budgeted for the 15 or is it budgeted?
It's budgeted for the 15.
Plus any other projects.
And leaving some space in that line in case a project comes up, because the projects that can't be done in the hours that are allotted during safety net would be additionally, we'd see another thing of a statement of work and what's included, and again, we would sit and closely look at it and negotiate what Julian could do on his own and what Julian and John could do in their monthly visits, and really scrutinize that, and they've been really good about negotiating with us, but we did want to leave that space in that line in case tech projects are coming up.
Not to put you on the spot, but just off the top of your head, do you, we've undertaken quite a bit of technology upgrading in this past year or so, it carries over into the next year. What are some of the things that, obviously we can't plan for emergencies, but what are some of the things that might be in there that you do know are going to come up?
So in this line, it would be support with infrastructure kind of projects, and right now, we're not foreseeing any major projects, but when we transition the server and we transition to Office 365 and then look at our system and say, what do we need now? And SimQuest is another service that they offer, but that's part of SafetyNet, is that they will help us do long-term planning for technology, and will help us plan 5-year plans or 10-year plans and break out the budgeting and look at what does your system need over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years, and how can we forecast that. We've had a lot of experience working with corporations, but also with school districts, and the salesperson that we deal with has previously been on a school board, so understands the need to break things out and the process of looking forward. So he's willing to help us with that kind of a thing. So I didn't want to not put anything in that line in case we do these projects and something comes up that we're really wanting to get done sooner rather than later.
So looking at that line currently,
Mhm.
with the motion that we had tonight, that basically uses up most
Yep.
of that line. And then there's a monthly fee that we are budgeting for next year.
The monthly fee we're paying now is a $13.95, but it's a prepaid. So we've prepaid through January with that monthly fee.
Then we'll have that monthly fee next year. you see.
Yes.
And it will be more, because they're gonna be providing more service.
Right.
So it'll be more than $1,300 a month.
It's $13.95 currently, so if you look at the $83.70, that's 6 months worth. It's gonna be $1,500 next year.
Right. So, but the 1,500 is not an exact number, so they'll look at what they need to manage. Once we put the server in, and we're looking at where all the switches are that we're managing, and they will give us a rate. But 1,500 is a good number if you take what we're getting now and add the switches to it, or what their proration is for the switches.
Okay, so we're up to like 17,000 now. And then we're putting in a pad of
It's 18,000.
18,000.
It's 18,000 just for the monthly fee of 1,500.
Okay.
So like I said, I'm not projecting a large project for next year.
That's without them increasing their fees. And typically, any vendor will increase their fees. Could be up to 8%, like a copier.
I'd like to see in the notes for that line, what our monthly fee is now,
Okay.
looking to pay more of a monthly fee. You know, I think for some of these big, I consider that a big jump. I think the budget committee's gonna wanna know, you know, how are we getting there? Especially when we go back into the history of this line, you see 10,000, we only used 1,200. We can explain everything that's going on this year. I want to be able to explain everything that we project to encounter next year.
I think also it's important to point out when we do present to the budget committee that if you look at the increase in this line, it's proportional to the decrease in the IT support salary line, because we were at 55 there, and we're currently at 39, so it is a shift.
Yep.
Rather than
We've
just
offset it, we've taken it offsite as opposed to having a salary position on site. And that leaves about $7,000, in that area, in that budget, for an unforeseen or even a foreseen project.
So moving forward, we would like for it to not be an unforeseen project.
Right.
We've got a lot of time left in this year, and we've had a lot of priorities with this year with the problems with the Meals Plus and with the phone system and getting this server in and switching to Office 365, that we have not had the time to sit down and really plan what's coming next. So I'm sure that we'll have a better answer to what's coming next, but not before this budget goes to the budget.
I understand.
And this-
But I think we just need, you know.
Sure, and I also just want to add, that this line is not specific to SimQuest. I know it says IT contracted services. Also, what comes out of this line is First Choice, which is another vendor that we use for the phone systems and as well as the announcement system, which we've had to do lots of repairs to this year. Unforeseen.
We're not done yet.
And we're still not done.
So SimQuest
That's
doesn't do the
quite
cabling, Fairpoint didn't do any of the cabling, so any cabling upgrades that had to happen going to the Cat 6 cable or anything from, any changes that had to be made across the building were done by First Choice. And anything that needs to change going forward to upgrade any of that equipment would come out of that line.
Do they have a monthly fee too, or?
That's not a monthly fee, they give us a quote, and then they come out and do it, and then we pay it.
So I guess I was actually going was, do we think that 7 is an appropriate number to have in there? I'm thinking about this $9,000 bill that we just
Yeah.
looked at, you know, I mean.
I do, because I think that we've made a lot of changes this year, and that's put us in a better position than we've been for the last 5 years. And not that we want to limp along, but we can certainly project things out over a longer period of time. So if we come up with something we want to do and it's not an emergency and it's not affecting systems we can plan that out for the following budget year, and I don't want to put too much in this line and have that
Not used.
not used or cut. So
Yep.
really what we're looking at is trying to be responsible, but not trying to over-request funds.
Well, and I think that's, and thank you, because that's, sometimes when you're trying to support a certain amount, you're also looking at where you're going to save, and so I think that's an important point to bring out, that, we're looking at a strategic plan moving forward as opposed to, again, proactive instead of reactive.
Are we good to move on? Okay. So the next is repair and maintenance technology. That would be general repairs and maintenance, any general things that need to be fixed. The next one is specific to smart boards, which was a request last year to break that out so that we could see what that is separately. So you'll remember that we replaced some smart board projectors. We had budgeted for, I think,
Six every year, for 3 years.
Okay, so we have purchased some for this year, and I don't think we'll need 3 years though.
It was to replace, so if you look at the notes, the light bulbs are 250, projectors
Sure.
are 900, and whiteboards are 1,000. So it was to replace 6 entire units.
Okay, to replace the boards, okay, because all of the
We haven't replaced
projectors.
boards yet.
Right, we haven't replaced any boards, but all of the projectors will have been replaced if we buy 6 next year, all of the projectors.
Which is good.
Awesome.
It means that they're all being used.
Yep.
They are.
I don't mind saying also that this is now old technology. It's in,
That's
these
true.
smartphones.
That's true,
Old
so,
technology?
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
I mean, I remember seeing, fancy presentation on
Sure.
new,
$30,000 last.
smart boards.
Yeah, it's not blast.
Are available now.
Math class, yeah.
Yeah, so I would say realistically, we won't continue to replace the boards. The boards take a lot longer to go. It's the projectors, the color wheels, all of those
The
things
bulbs.
where the heat up there that's collecting dust and all those things, no matter how you blow them out or, take all those things apart and really take care of them, those things go. The boards are less likely to go. It takes a lot longer for them to go. So by the time the boards are going, we might have a different solution that we're rolling in.
I think the school is fortunate to have all the smart boards that we do. There's a lot of schools that,
Absolutely.
they have one in their library and that's it, or whatever their situation is.
And new staff that we've hired this year have come in and been really pleasantly surprised to have a smartphone. They're coming from a place where there were mobile smart boards and you might be able to sign up for it and have it once a week or
Right.
whatever. It's kind of a pain to hook it up and all that stuff. So to have it fixed and to have it available in every classroom where kids are taught.
I don't know the story of how we got smart boards in every single
Get a grant.
classroom.
It started with a grant.
A major grant.
It was.
I think we have to start looking into seeing if there's another grant available
Oh,
to
sure.
have them replaced, have each of them replaced.
Well-
Because now, we have set, we're at a certain level right now, and we don't want to go backwards. We want to
Oh,
keep going forwards. We don't want to go to a spot where, we start losing smart boards in every room. Maybe we get to this point where the technology isn't being upgraded or supported anymore. I always want to make sure that each classroom in this school has a smart board, whether it's up to date or it's not up to date.
We have to look at the trend in technology too. Steve was just referring to with the smart glass that they have. I mean, soon relatively, those will be integrated.
Yeah.
Smart boards will also be laughed at. And we love them now, and you're right, there's so many schools that don't have them. But what's next? We talked about all that.
So who wrote the grant?
It's Title I.
No.
Wasn't it? No,
It's the technology director to start with.
The technology director at the time wrote the grant?
Yeah. And so those ones were put in, and then Title I supported a second grant, which put another wave of them in. And then Title I and the district combined to purchase a few more to put in the rooms that didn't yet have. The initial grant was for 8, and that was written by the technology director.
Again, I want to keep the level that we are at right now. I never want us to go below that level now where there's a smart board in every classroom. I want to plan ahead,
Yep.
plan future again, if it's time to write another grant,
Yeah.
let's make sure that we're able to do something.
Right, we need to be aware if those when those grants become available. So right now we've got a pretty good team in place to be looking for those things.
Well, as you said, if it was the technology director, we don't necessarily have a technology director now. So we have to make those adjustments. I know that the town, there was a warrant article last year for the town to hire a grant writer, but unfortunately the warrant article wasn't written very well, and it wasn't a specific dollar amount put into the warrant article. I think that's what it was, don't quote me on that.
Hired something.
They had interviewed, I guess, 3 outstanding candidates, but when it comes to paying them, they had a hard time allocating the funds, or the funds aren't necessarily there. I don't know all the backstory, but I'm glad that the town, I think it was a petition warrant article, but there is money out there, and the town's making an effort to get it, and we need to make sure that the school is making a good effort to get it as well.
Okay, so the next one, Alicia, did you want?
Yeah, copy or lease really falls to me first, I think, only because it's 2 bills we have. We have our lease agreement, which is with US Bank, but then we also have the usage, which is our servicing agreement with Conway. We have a monthly fee for each machine, as well as overage charges for every machine that uses over the number of counts. I did restructure for this second quarter how that is mandated. We do have a pooling, so instead of by machine, we have one machine that's short, we still pay the monthly fee, but we have another machine over, we end up paying overage charges. It's now by the copy, so that we don't have to worry about that.
Good.
So I really need to do a little bit more analysis with that. In addition to that, I had mentioned as I started the conversation, we may need to look at another machine, because the machine in the SAU is one that we own, it's not part of this lease. It's covered for servicing, so as it breaks, they go out on hope to pray to find pieces to the machine so that they can fix it. But it may be something that we need to budget into this line.
And you would lease it as opposed to purchase?
I'm not sure, yeah.
But
We might do a lease where we purchase it for $1 at the end.
Yep.
Because already this year, we had to send back the machines that we had from 2 years ago. So our lease ended 2 years ago. Well, our lease ended last year, but we purchased new equipment the year before. We had stored those 4 pieces here that just got shipped back in September. We had to pay for. So if you buy them out for $1, then you don't have to pay for shipping.
Yep.
You have to keep rid of them.
Yep.
So the next line is telephone. If you look back historically in this line, had been at 21,000, and we had overspent it the following year. We had hoped to go to voice over IP, and that didn't happen. So that year we spent almost the exact same that we had spent the year before. This year we budgeted to go to voice over IP and actually did. So this number that you're seeing, the 48,000 there, is a combination of what we have actually for telephone bills and multiplied to the 12 months, plus cell phone and internet and question.
How many cell phones do we have?
is it,
We're actually going to get rid of them. I don't have one. Mine is my personal cell phone. It's Mike's. He doesn't want to hear it too much. I don't want to either. I don't really care about it. Remember getting out. You know.
we'll talk about that.
We're not back to that.
So we have 5. We have 5
We're getting
phones.
the directive.
You're getting rid of one.
It's $303 a month for 5 phones. Yeah. Yeah, it's a government,
Really
yeah, it's a government plan that we put out to bid as part of E-rate. So we put out to bid, and that's why they have to give us the plan they give us. It's cheap.
And the bill that we currently have from Fairpoint is one that we have to go back and reconcile. So with the switch over to the phones, there was also a switch over in who was supervising the project, and so the initial run through of the building and what you need, and here's what you're gonna have, and here's how many lines and all this. The contract was signed previously, and then things were added, and Alicia and I need to really sit down with the build and go back and make sure that what they quoted us in the original contract is what we're being billed, and any additions are accounted for properly, and that there isn't any double billing. So, this 48,000 number is based on what we have for a bill, so that could potentially be slightly less, if we come across things that we shouldn't be billed. But
But it won't be by much.
it won't be by much.
And
So-
currently, just to put this out there too, we're paying Bayring for internet as well as Fairpoint for internet until we do have that project in December done. Because they're providing internet services to different parts of the building.
And so the next line is supplies, information management services. Alicia, refresh my memory there.
I think that's all the cabling.
That's what I was.
That's what it is.
Right.
That's exactly what it is. So any cabling or any cords, wires, things like that that needs to be.
Switches.
Yep, replaced or repaired.
How about
Extension cord.
electrical outlets in classrooms so they
Nope.
don't have
That'll fall
power
under
strips
electricity.
Yeah,
plugged in along the
No,
wall?
That's facility.
that is facility.
That's not.
But well said.
I figured, I just wanted to say it.
Good.
The next two lines we haven't filled in the numbers for. We don't anticipate them being much different from what is in there for budgeted, but we didn't want to do that without really consulting with Julian and going through all of the different services. One of those things, first of all, information access fees would also include the website, and where that is still in development, and Alicia and I need to sit down and look at, because we prepaid, how much is going on to which budget years.
Mhm.
We have to look at that. So we didn't put a number in there yet.
E-rate, did we get our stuff for E-rate done on time or
Yes.
submitted?
Yeah, so Alicia's been working on the E-rate, and Julian's been providing information for that, and I think the step that we're at is meeting minutes and some very
That's
minor
right.
things that have to be provided to them, that
There
policies.
was conversation like yesterday.
Yeah, so there are a lot of pieces to E-rate, and one of those pieces is that you have to have certain settings in your firewall, you have to have certain use policies, and those have to be updated regularly, so they have to see the copies of those and the meeting minutes where they were discussed. And we've discussed them recently, so it'll be good, but we just have to go back and provide all those to them. But we're not behind schedule on that. So the information access fees also includes the entire Power School system and the hosting of Power School. So that's why that line really is a large number. There's a lot included in that line, and Alicia will provide a breakout of all of what's in there when we finalize that number. Software tech is software licenses, so the Microsoft suite licenses, all of that stuff, but also any software that's used for curriculum, so the United Streaming software. This will also include a license fee for the backup solution for the new server. We're going with a Veeam, which is what was recommended by SimQuest, and a real benefit to that is that it, rather than taking snapshots periodically, it's more of a live backup, is my understanding. I don't know a lot about it, Steve, but
Or like a sync or a replication type of.
yeah, right. So there were a lot of like really important benefits to this particular software. So that is between $1,500 and $2,000 depending on which plan we go with. And so that's not determined yet, but that will be included in that line. And then the last line, computers and computer equipment. Last year we had done 26,000. I believe that was 21,000 for the laptops, laptop carts, and laptops and laptops cart. And then there was 5,000 for something else that is is done and will not be needed again. I'm sorry, I don't remember what that was.
Yeah, we need to break down on that line.
Yeah. And Alicia had the breakdown, and I have the breakdown.
What did we do 2 years ago? Last?
Okay, so the 5,000 was switches. So there were some old switches that needed to be replaced and some fried switches that needed to be replaced. Some of those things. So the other 5,000 was for switches. Those have all been replaced. So we've taken out the 5,000 there. And so this 20,000 that we're looking at is laptops for one additional card and a laptop card. And that will put
20,
us...
right? 20 laptops?
20 laptops. Yeah. So that will put us at having a cart for each grade group. Right now, it's primarily 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th using the laptop carts a lot, which means that, actually I am moving laptop carts around the building. Having to use the elevator, having to use the lift on rainy days or outside on not rainy days. And so we would like to avoid having people to sign up for laptop carts, not have them when they would like to have them, and for them to have to keep being moved around the building.
Right, ideally, you don't want to have to take
You
the
don't want to-
elementary side all the way.
Ideally, but that is what's happening.
Right, there's more chances of.
So we would like to
Breaking.
have one in the 7th and 8th grade, and they can, those teachers can sign up for it themselves and work that out. 6th grade uses it quite a bit, 5th grade uses it all the time, and 3rd and 4th grade have been using it not as much, but off and on. And we would really like to encourage the laptops to be in those classrooms and in the students' hands. So having one more laptop card would really get us to where we need to be encouraging.
Do we sell the Chromebooks too?
We do have, I would say probably 14 and a half functioning Chromebooks. So the half one is missing a lot of keys. It still works if you know where the letters are supposed to be there and you can go to buttons. But we prefer not to give kids equipment that they're not working properly. So
Right.
it's not a class set for sure. And when 5th grade is not able to have the laptops because somebody else is using them, they'll bust out the old Chromebooks and use them in small groups.
So we're not going to replace those.
We're not going to replace those.
Yeah.
What about the computers in the 2 labs? What's
So the
status?
computers in the upstairs lab, Julian spent quite a bit of time rebuilding over the summer. So he took them apart, upgraded all the hard drives and different things in them. He's really spent a lot of time being able to do what he does, and that is work on hardware. And so the upstairs lab is functioning well. The downstairs lab is still functioning well from the last time that we replaced them. Going forward, I just want to be really clear that we need to get into a cycle of replacement of those computers because we don't want to be replacing a whole lab at once. That's not the way to do it.
Haven't we talked about that though? Every 5 years, every computer gets
Sure,
replaced.
we have talked about that. And what I'm about to talk about kind of goes into that. It's not the labs, but thinking about the teachers' computers.
Well, that's what was going to be my next question because
So most of the
are they
teachers
those included or no?
included in this
The
one.
ones that keep getting replaced, like every 5 years.
Okay, so we haven't had a 5-year cycle.
For the teachers' computers.
No. Most of the teachers' computers are at least 10 years old.
Oh, God.
And they're attached to the smart boards, which is what they're teaching from.
They have to have reliable
They,
Can you find out what a lease program is for a 3 or 5 year lease program for the teachers? And that, we've heard before from several teachers in the last few meetings about the equipment in there.
Mhm.
And just find out what it would be for them to all get new computers.
Okay, I can do that. What's included in this 20,000 number was, Julian has been looking at how many computers and what kind of use, and we have about 27 computers that are used by classroom teachers, and an additional 15 that are equally as old, used by other school staff. So what he wanted to do was replace at least 10 next year with brand new computers, and then the following year, another 10, and do that until
So
they're
a 3-year plan.
a 3-year plan until we're out of the hole, and then do a 5-year
We
cycle.
don't lease anything, do we?
We don't lease any.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear what Julian has to say about leasing.
The county leases, and I think it's a 3 or 4 year So every, when the lease is up, we all get new
Right.
computers. But the
Yes.
bundle option, updated and.
Julian's so
Well-
good at rebuilding the computers though too. So if you have it for 5 or 6 years, you can rebuild it.
I think we go back
But
to that
we-
conversation, sorry, where what if it's not him?
Sure.
Or what if it's not somebody who
That's
has such a,
that would be a real problem. And
Yeah.
the rebuilding, it has been necessary because so much of the equipment is so old. But I would like to get out of that situation. And so we'll look into the leasing and see what that would look like.
And, he's
That would be
already,
another option.
it's obvious he's already allocating time to rebuild
Absolutely.
certain computers for the students.
Yeah.
But he hasn't spent any time rebuilding any computers for the teachers.
Oh, no, he has.
Oh,
But it's reactive, right? It's when something breaks.
this breaks, I know.
And I'm
Yeah,
sure.
and then they're without, or it's, my computer is making this really strange sound, or the room smells hot, it's these kinds of things.
And I'm sure he's working with the parts he has. I mean, it's not.
Absolutely.
That's right,
So-
that's right.
I mean, the
Well,
problem with rebuilding computers is that the technology moves so fast in that
Yeah.
they're, all the components are kind of like relatively the same age. So like if you upgrade this, it's, everything else is still, it's old. I mean, there's always going to be a bottleneck somewhere.
Absolutely. So when we talked about this number, he said, we can do this one of two ways. We can either get some new and some more new and then some more new the following year, or we can get all used and we could replace them all now and then move into a process of 5 years. I would rather do some new and some new and some new.
Well, we
But
find
we'll
out
look at the lease option.
How much is a lease to replace all of them?
Yeah.
It's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah,
to
it is.
experience.
well, the way technology moves,
And that way
like
you're
Trevor
kinda-
said.
Yeah,
technology's
assured you're
done.
gonna get new computers every 3 years.
Right, which would be a nice assurance.
You had a question on what was spent last year, I think, for online? I stepped out.
No, I was.
Oh, you were just asking. So that was the 3 computers with the parts, and it was 2 switches that had been fried with the thunderstorm that were not
Oh, sure,
replaced
sure.
by, there's no claim through insurance timely.
I remember.
Wasn't all that much.
The 50 grand you're talking
Yeah.
about. In our current budget, have we bought any new computers? That $7,800 has been bought. Just getting the server stuff right.
That was the server purchase. We- But you just bought that, I think that's in here.
Yeah,
So it
that's
hasn't
not
hit the lines
reflected
yet.
in that. He got a fantastic deal, like computers for like $100 and 35 or whatever it was.
eBay?
I think it was like eBay, yeah.
Black Friday.
Yeah. Or Black Friday or
So he purchased 20
Small Town Saturday, I think.
Small
it
Town
was.
Saturday.
Yeah.
20 Lenovo i5 laptop computers for
Right.
$135.
Wow.
It was.
But that's not reflected in the line yet, because this
Yeah.
hasn't been approved.
Right, so it was 25.
Nice laptop.
But then it was about.
Yeah.
Also,
And
this-
those are on a cart to be used in the middle school. The laptops that we have on the rest of the carts, which the middle school have been using, but they're smaller, which are great, but we're talking about bigger kids and they're a little rough around stuff. So those Lenovo's are a little tougher and a little bigger. So those are being put on a cart to be dedicated to 700.
So that brings us to our last line. We stayed a little long, we had some time, but I think this was good time used. One of the things, I appreciate the board's support too. I mean, there's certainly a feeling that there's more support. Things may change when we see the bottom line. We understand that as well, but right now, we've come saying, this is what we're going to need, and so far we've seen a lot of support.
My basic rule of thumb with budgeting is probably driven by my professional background, and that is you plan on what the ultimate probable cost is going to be, and you try to focus on that as opposed to retroactively or backfill lines when you don't have the funds.
Absolutely.
That just sets you up for
And
failure.
that's one of the reasons we're doing it this way too.
What do we have left?
We have facilities,
Yep.
Transportation.
and transportation, those are the two big ones. And we'll have to fill in some space spaces as we go.
So we have a budget meeting scheduled for December 6th.
Related services, private and public tuition.
Yeah.
That's right.
Tuesday. So, and we've been trying to keep those ones to 2 hours. This was a board meeting that we decided to develop into a budget meeting in
This was a good idea, though.
do we think that we're going to finish on the 6th with remains for functions?
Let's see.
For functions,
Or for,
I'm not gonna have the health insurance quote. most
Right.
likely.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
So we're gonna need a meeting to review, I think, everything as a whole.
yep.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if our board meeting on the 15th, we could do something similar that we did tonight.
Dedicate some time.
Yeah, dedicate some time to looking at that final number as opposed to having a completely separate budget meeting the week before Christmas.
Well, and I think we want to talk about warrant articles too.
On the 15th?
Well,
Let's
Or you
see.
want to do that?
let's see
Maybe we can-
what we get through
On
our
the
next
6th?
budget meeting, and then we can plan on that meeting.
Maybe we get to one.
Yeah, maybe we get through what we need to, except for the insurance, because that's probably not
Right,
going to be
but we-
in, so.
right,
I got
then
one
it's
in.
just,
Let's get one on, but it'd be nice to have one. All right.
Well, this one's smoothly, so it's a possibility we could go further.
We still have to approve the manifest.
Looking through it.
There's an accounts payable and 2 payroll.
Got the 3 payroll. Yeah, that was 3 payroll.
I really
Two
appreciated
of them.
how the attorney bill were all broken out. And you can see where that money is being spent, thank you. I have a question about, the water main, or was that when the water went out?
On a bill?
On the bill? Yeah.
Which one? For water and sewer bill?
Oh, maybe it is the water.
We have 4 water and sewer bills for
Okay.
the town of Winchester that should be in this manifest.
They are. I thought that was services for,
No, it's for allowing us.
Oh, to adjust.
Use water here.
To adjust.
no, I know, but I thought it was an expense that was charged back to us when the water went out on when the main broke or whatever on Parker. I was gonna be like, what?
Yeah, that would.
You would have.
Just like. No, that makes more sense, the water bill. Yeah, I get that same bill now. Oh, I only signed that one.
I make a motion to approve the accounts payable manifest for the date of December 2nd, 2016, in the amount of $68,028.80.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the accounts payable manifest in the amount of $68,028.80 say aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to approve the accounts payable, the payroll manifest for December 1st, 2016, in the amount of $375.08.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Was it 375.08?
$375.08.
There must be. You said $300, like that is not payroll.
I make a motion to approve the payroll manifest for December 2nd in the amount of $206,011.30.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the payroll manifest of $206,011.30 say aye.
Aye.
I don't know what this third one is like.
That's scary.
I think I know what she did. The 2 small ones are the same individual.
make a motion to approve the payroll manifest for December 1st, 2016 in the amount of $68.20.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Jim, is there anything you want to add before we get to committee reports?
No, we've designed the agenda exactly what we're doing for that reason.
I noticed that, thank you.
Try. I mean, I can say a few things. We'd be doing.
All right, committee reports, budget committee. We've talked about our next budget meeting, which will be on Tuesday, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. The town has a budget meeting next Thursday at 7 o'clock. So however far we get on Tuesday, I will update the town on where we are. We want to start thinking about dates. I was looking at the timetable in the back of our head. When we can meet with the budget committee, we talked about before Christmas and after Christmas. I think we think about when our hearing, when we want that to be, and then we just work backwards. But I'll talk to the rest of the committee and see what they think.
So we do have our you mean our deliberative session? Is it here?
Public hearing.
Our public hearing, okay.
Public hearing first.
Yeah, we don't have that on the calendar yet.
I'd like to try to get, I mean, I envision having our meetings with the budget committee happen before Christmas. I'd still like to see that happen. We'll see where we go. I'll see what ends up happening. Where are to. And that's another reason why, I want to talk about warrant articles. At least bring up the topic of warrant articles at our next budget meeting on Tuesday, okay?
Mhm.
Joint loss?
I was trying to open my minutes on my phone from that meeting that they were holding. So what we did was, we followed up on a meeting from 3 months ago, when we went around and inspected. So we went around and looked at some of the rooms on the elementary side to see what had been corrected, and 90% of the stuff had been fixed. Just a couple of cords that had power surge things plugged into them that probably had too many plugged into it. They need to have outlets put in under the screens, markings. So that's something we need to get taken care of. So there's just not a whole array of extension cords essentially around the smartphones.
And that's already planned for Christmas break.
Okay, good. And fire retardant on the curtains, on the bookshelves.
The book closet.
Well, the curtains have been removed from the
There's currently
bookshelves.
nothing on. So we were discussing whether you should just leave them where they are, or get curtains that are fire retardant, or get the spray that you spray on the curtains.
The Department of Labor had mentioned if we were to spray the curtains, it only lasts for so long, and that you would need to reapply that every so often.
You have to be able to prove that you sprayed.
Yeah, you have
I'm
to
not
keep,
sure
that's
how to
right.
do it.
You
Like,
take the
video?
plate, no, yeah. Robert, you want this out there?
I mean, they do make fire
I
retardant
think that's
fabric already.
most
and
likely
purchase
the
it
way
in
to go.
Joanne's.
Yeah, we'll mostly, the technology has increased even in the last 5 years now. I think that's the way to go. And they'll have some pleasing patterns too.
It's not really joint loss, but as we were going around, there were at least one room without an American flag.
Yeah.
And can you just follow up and see if that gets
I will.
replaced, and just find out what other rooms might not have one?
It was a preschool. It was over in the yeah, I think it was preschool. Didn't have it. Yeah, and then no, there's absolutely an
If we do
explanation.
need flags, and if another room had a small flag like you see at the cemetery for a military marker, which is appropriate, it's the American flag, but the classroom should have the
Standard size.
standard size flag.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Not
if
necessarily
somebody
that
can
large.
look at, not that big, but if somebody could just find out, just to get the correct size flag in their classrooms, if they don't.
We also spoke about the system we have for alerting when something's wrong. I mean, too often we would come to the meeting and say, yeah, well, this thing is wrong, there's, I don't know, a light out or something. And the question always comes, well, did you go through the process? Well, no, I didn't, but everybody knows it's not. They don't, so we really hit that pretty hard. Like, keep sacred the system. If there's something wrong, if there has to be. It was a good meeting.
Yeah, we had talked about using the procedure to report an issue through the email. It's been working better. People were afraid that they would be the 15th person to report something, but who cares? It
Yeah,
actually
that's
works
right.
out where
Delete emails.
everybody thinks everybody else reported it.
Right.
And we went 2 weeks with a plugged sink.
Right.
Again, today we had apparently a sticky note on a bathroom door. Was it there?
I don't work.
Don't specify.
It was a bathroom door with a sticky note that said, toilet is out of order. You don't know unless you actually walk by the sticky note, so we're still working on the communication piece today.
And that's why we brought it up, just on and on again. This is what we need to do.
I'd rather know 15 times than none.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was exactly right.
I think we also talked about the sanitary wipes. A lot of students eat
Yeah,
snack in the
cleaning the
classroom,
nasty
and we
dolls.
did get a sample, and the teachers appreciated the sample. Another sample came in today that we're going to have them try. It's actually a sturdier wipe as well as better scented. That doesn't have like a cleaning solution type of smell. It's not scented, it's unscented, but it doesn't smell like cleaning.
Another thing we discussed as we looked into the bathroom, the boys, especially on the elementary side, that the tile in that should be ripped up and new tile, larger tile, not the little tiny one-by-one pieces, put down, just because of the sanitary conditions of that bathroom are emanating into the hallway even 2 hours after school has closed. So
Didn't we get that deep clean?
We did,
They were
but you know.
steaming, but it's under the tile.
It is.
It's like
It's
under the
gone
ground.
into the ground. The tiles are an inch, half an inch square. Over the course of the years, I mean, the kids don't have the best aim.
Another
It's just,
interesting choice of words, emanating out into the hall.
Well, sometimes things are unique, like original.
I mean, that could be a
Nice.
side
Yeah,
project.
Not necessarily that one.
Yeah, it should be. Because we did, we deep cleaned it and it might have lasted a little while, but it's.
there's also a couple of cracked water fountains that should be replaced.
Those are already on the list of replaced. We mentioned.
There was a fan that we didn't know to switch.
Mhm.
So those are things wrong.
Do you have another meeting or?
What we've
January.
been doing, yeah, we've been
Didn't we say
meeting
twice
every 2
Every other
months.
month.
2 months ago.
Yeah, because when it's 4 times a year, then all of a sudden the date comes up. This guy's good, pretty good.
Finance?
Nothing.
Nothing. In the back of my head, I'm thinking about when that finance committee should be meeting.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that as we get past the new year. Keene High School Committee, the committee actually has a meeting at the Keene SAU on Tuesday with Rob Millay, the superintendent, and the school board chair for Keene, Edward Murdoch, and Tim Burr will be there as well. And we're going to have a fascinating discussion on our relationship. We'll be asking some questions about the AREA agreement and what it would take to be a part of that agreement if the town so choose. So we look forward to Tuesday, and I look forward to letting everybody know what happened. Legislative action policy. Yeah, I'll take that as a no.
No.
We have a meeting scheduled for.
We do. We have a meeting scheduled for before our next board meeting on the 15th.
Awesome.
And then it's a 6. And then we do have the, I don't even remember what it's called now, the personnel policy with, exactly. And Trevor had some suggestions for change, and I had agreed with him, so I think that we're going to probably try to have that for the next meeting. I didn't have it for this one because we
Yeah,
were in the
that
budget.
was-
And you also have the financial investment policy,
We just need to approve that, correct?
where you should review it every year.
We reviewed it, but I mean, there are a few things that should say Winchester in it.
Set. Negotiations. Negotiations continue. Our next meeting is on Monday, December 12th. I think right now, the school board is awaiting response from the teachers union on many of our proposals. So we definitely will know more after December. So we had good discussion and feeling pretty good.
Negotiation.
New Hampshire School Board Association.
Nothing, but I was thinking of, I was thinking about this today. I don't know, maybe after budget, maybe in the March timeframe, we'd like to have Barrett come in again and do training. And we have new seats
Yep.
Election day.
after election.
Yep.
Oh,
Scholarship. When's our next select board meeting?
the next Wednesday, the 14th.
Who has to be there?
I think it's me. I think it is, but I'm trying.
I think he's the top of the list. Or would you, Steve, me, Heather? Maybe me, Steve, Heather.
I don't know if we did it before though, because I tried to consider like, who would be in budget, who would be in negotiations, and try to make that work.
When you're gonna have to tell us next.
Is there a calendar?
Sick bank,
Nothing new.
professional development.
We have a meeting scheduled for Monday,
Really? Sweet.
even though there aren't slash.
Legit.
School planning in district professional development. Monday, December 19th at 3:30.
Technology, learned a lot about technology tonight. Any committee meetings scheduled or anything about?
Yes, Wednesday, December 14th at
Yeah.
3:30.
Really?
December 14th is going to be a busy day around here.
Hold on one second, I'm still.
Oh, we got the basketball game.
We have PTA doing a lot of functions here.
PTA is doing something after.
Family fun night, building snowman.
What day did you say that was on?
14th.
On the poster.
That's like, no, it's
No,
like
that,
five.
it's, no, it's 6 o'clock.
That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
What's the day again?
yeah. 14th.
14th at 3:30.
14th. Basketball game starts at 4. Holiday family fun night at 6.
That's here.
Pardon?
That's here. And so all the posters are up, it doesn't say where it is or who's sponsoring.
PTA is sponsoring it.
That's, you don't know how much of an inside joke that is. We had discussions.
You said 3:30?
Yes.
All sorts of stuff on books.
Yeah.
So was that meeting? She did.
Oh, yeah, it's
They
big.
need to be setting up in here, just move the technology, because we're moving to a different room. and that's
Yeah,
not-
I don't, you might have to do that. Yeah. I think it's, yeah.
And energy conservation facilities. Citizens' comments. Anybody? Anybody?
Motion to adjourn?
Yes, Sue?
I was concerned at the concert last night with the footwear on the floor, especially the little kids, well, kids under 10 with boots on that are twirling around on their heels. And I was just curious, I just want to throw it out there. We don't need to discuss it, but it was a concern.
It's something we're looking into for facilities, to see if there's a mat or something that we can put down on the floor before we put the chairs down. Because you really can't monitor who's wearing what.
Oh, exactly.
It needs to be something more of an approach of, let's protect the floor. How
Yeah,
can we do
there,
that?
there are mats available, like for boating, Hopkinton, I can tell you, they do at the gym, they have these mats down, mats, they put the
still looks,
Floor still looks pretty good.
I mean, you know, now that basketball season is here.
Yep. Yep.
The other thing that's been bothering me tonight is our lack of a tech director. Our vice principal and curriculum coordinator is certainly very capable, but I'm really concerned about the amount of time it's taking away from the primary position. And I'm concerned about our support, our administrator to the superintendent doing tech director stuff. When the tech director left, she picked up the I-4 or whatever it was.
I foresee.
And we've talked about things getting
Okay.
messed up over the years. We need one person that's technically capable and knowledgeable and dedicated to watching over our technology before we get into a pickle. And I'm not doubting anybody's capability that's doing this, but if we had it all focused in one place, I think we could do better. I think it's important.
We've had a tech director before.
We have.
We got us our smart boards.
Who does our smart boards, which really shouldn't be the tech director's job, if you ask me, but that might be a discussion for another
Or
time.
maybe another title, so the person not only manages and directs, but does some hands-on stuff. Who knows? But right now, it's kind of piecemeal here, piecemeal there, and it's not somebody's primary job. So when they're doing that work, they're taking away from their primary job. And when it's secondary, it's secondary. Yeah, we do pretty well. We manage pretty well. But who knows what's looming over the horizon?
Activities that Simquest currently performs for us, are those things that they do, things that would fall under a technology director? Absolutely. Yeah.
And also the power school work originally was under our technology director. And that's a lot of work, especially getting all those standards-based report cards done all at once instead of phasing them in. Just throwing it out there.
The SimQuest too, just to put this out there, they provide a service that we absolutely need because we don't have it.
Right.
But it's also a service, I believe it's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Right.
Where if something breaks down after hours, they certainly will help you. I believe it's $250 an hour.
Right.
Or a tech director would be a salary
Salary
position. And that would be,
Yeah, we can make a deal.
There are certainly a lot of benefits to being a tech director. I think it's something we have to keep thinking about every year. It's not something that we put into this budget, not because we don't want it, but because there are other things that we need to have. And if there will be a time not too far away when we need to have tech.
Right, I mean, it's easy to cut a position, it's easy to get rid of a position, it's a lot harder to bring that position back.
But you're talking about the future.
Yeah.
What if our current tech guy, something happens to him, he's real good at what he does? What if our current support person upstairs decides to retire? There's some pieces in there our replacement would do. What happens if our curriculum coordinator, vice principal takes another position? There are some things that that position is doing that a replacement wouldn't do. We're in a big pickle here, or possibly in a big pickle.
We have been in many pickles in the past too,
Yeah.
and we've found a way to make it work. And I'm confident that if we were to get into a situation like that, we would make it work. And our conversation tonight with
I was just gonna say.
our superintendent assistant was exactly that. We understand what's going to happen. This is coming down the road. It's not something that we can avoid or anything like that. We know it's coming down the road. Now's the time to make some sort of adjustment and make sure that we will be covered when that happens. I mean, I've heard tech director, we need this tech director before. You're not the only person who has said that. But I think we're already adding 2.5 positions to this budget right now. So you said, are we talking about what the school needs or what the school wants? So we have to figure out what that exactly is.
Well, we don't need it right now.
But you could argue that we do,
Yeah.
pretty easily.
And I think we do. I think we do need it, but unfortunately, we're in a position we need to look at what do we need.
Like more.
There are a lot of things that schools need, and we always have to prioritize their needs. And Sue's right, there are a lot of things that could happen that could screw up what we're doing to kind of get through. And I think we have to be cognizant of that going forward.
I mean, if we were to hire a tech director, I would almost say that some of our priorities are out of sync, because we are also hiring 42 teachers that are going to work every day and sitting in front of a computer that's 15 years old. Where are our priorities?
Oh, I
And
understand.
where do they line up? Where
I
should they be?
I got 2 more little things.
Go ahead, I'm ready.
We're all
Can we
ready.
store stuff on the 3rd floor?
No.
Never?
What do you want to store over there?
Be storing it in the basement.
Oh, you mean
Oh,
the...
yeah,
And
I'd rather not
No,
say.
because that's the type of stuff that needs to be locked.
So when you restore the 3rd floor, you put a walk-in vault in it or something.
We'll-
On one end. I mean, you take however wide by however deep the room is and store stuff in
Yeah, but once the camel puts his nose in
it. I'm just throwing it out there. Again,
I think once you've done you design a room that's first.
it, we certainly.
And the last thing, and I know this is a touchy subject,
Oh.
but I know that big places do this. What about mandating direct deposit? So you don't have somebody wandering around, trying to find somebody to give them their check, or getting them mailed on the wrong days, or whatever, or having checks, having somebody have to be here when school is not in session and checks come out. And I know there's a lot of people that don't want to give up that power, but there are a lot of places, like the US government, that mandate direct deposit, and
It's a small percentage that we have that do not have direct deposit, some of which are substitute teachers.
Yeah. And the
It
other.
would be hard to mandate substitute teacher to have direct deposit because
But
we
you
have,
can-
it takes 2 payrolls to update a direct deposit. We have to run a pre-note to make sure the information is correct. Because if we send a direct deposit with funds to an invalid account, we get a fee.
anyway, I'm just, like I said, I know it's a touchy subject.
Well, the majority of, other than the substitute teachers, it's all collective bargaining agreement staff.
That's true.
We get nothing that says we have to be paid each other.
So I'm saying,
Anyway,
it's
anyway.
probably something that needs to be negotiated on both collective.
Well, and the other thing too, for the
But
exact
I
reasons.
know, come payday, there's a person comes around, have you seen something? Have you seen something? It's not quite very.
It's not, but, and take it that one point, maybe we could say something, have that person come up to the SAU. Because you're right, for us to go seek them out, maybe that's the incentive there. Hey, your check is late in the mail, well, why don't you sign up for direct deposit, you wouldn't have that
That's what I
problem.
was just.
Can't be late.
So
It
in other
has to be
words,
delivered on payday.
take
Yeah.
the burden off us and say, your check is available on this particular day.
But the school's closed.
But the check would be available the previous day.
Anyway, just throwing it out there.
Anything else, Sue?
No, that was my list, thanks.
Are we all set with citizens' comments? Citizens'
Citizens.
comments. That's not a bad idea.
That's another
Or do we make
agenda,
that
another agenda item.
Sue's comments. Jim, do you leave non-public?
I do not.
Oh,
Okay.
you
Said no more.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.